What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if female Naruto girlfriend of Tony Stark? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. This was not how Naruto had planned his life to turn out. No, not by any means had he thought he would end up in a situation like this. If this were the afterlife, he was really disappointed because there was no endless supply of ramen and no sign of any of the people he had lost and hoped to see again someday. It rather made sense that this might be the afterlife. He did remember they were in a war and he figured he could have died fighting, though that was a little too tame for his tastes. Truth be told, he had rather hoped he would end up dying of dehydration after a week-long marathon including Sakura, Hinata, and Shien. Unfortunately, that had never happened. Damn the luck, and Naruto now found himself in a strange place that was nothing like his home. Nothing was right, not the sounds, sights or even the smells. Everything seemed to have taken a little detour concerning reality right after he and his partner Kurama, better known as Kyuubi, teamed up to fight the last fight. The details were a bit fuzzy, in fact a good portion of the last few years were fuzzy or just plain missing. Naruto had woken up laying in the middle of a large wooded area. But it was a strange forest considering he could hear the sound of machines in the distance and everything looked just a little too neat to be natural. Sure enough, after taking to the trees and getting as high as he could, Naruto was surprised to find that he was in the middle of the largest village he had ever seen. The place made a megacure seem tiny by comparison, with buildings reaching so high into the sky that one or two of them seemed to actually be touching the clouds. It was just crazy to him that anyone could build something that big. What also drove him crazy was the smell. The air was thick, oily almost, and left an aftertaste in his mouth like a mix of burning rubber and sewage. You could almost see the air around you, so filled with smoke and steam, not to mention the overpowering smell of people. Oh, were there people? He could hear them from where he was at, and that was a good 200 yards from the nearest paved road. It was enough to give him a headache. Let's not even mention the fact that for the first time in his life not even the thought of ramen sounded good to him. It just turned his stomach like the bad milk he often had in his refrigerator. Naruto had spent a week hiding out in the strange forest trying to figure out what was going on before he remembered the secret behind training with his clones. Since waking up here in this place, Naruto had been having a hard time remembering clearly what had happened to him over the last few years. Everything was clear to him up until his return to Konoha after his training trip with Jiraiya, but after that there were larger and larger voids in his memories that he couldn't explain. Not many things really scared Naruto, except ghost stories and Sakura at that time of the month, but the thought that he was losing his memory terrified him. He was looking through his travel scroll when he found his journal. Jiraiya had told him the day after they left for the 3-year training trip that everyone should keep a journal, then handed Naruto a leather-bound orange book with nothing but blank pages. Every night for the next 3 years he had written down his thoughts about the day and a summary of what he had learned. After his return to Konoha, he had continued the practice as it seemed to give him a way to focus his mind and thoughts, giving him some measure of peace. So, sitting in a tree in the middle of a strange artificial wood, Naruto read about his own life for the past several years. He laughed and cried as the memories slowly came back to him, at least more than he had before. Only once did he think about burning the journal, afraid to read anymore, and that was with the knowledge that his mentor and godfather was dead. He wept that night, probably the first time he could remember truly crying since he was a small child. When he awoke the next morning he made a promise to himself not to forget Jiraiya and to do everything in his power to make the man's dream of peace come true. Naruto finished reading his journal, thankful that he had written in such great detail about his training and the things he had learned over the last few years. He sealed the journal away and began planning what to do now. Information was the key, so he needed to learn about where he was and what was going on. Only sending clones out to learn what they could about where he was at, Naruto spent much of the next few days training in secret at night. In that time he learned that this was a much rougher and less polite place than he had ever seen before. Out of an original 50 clones he had sent out to reconnoiter, 5 were shot, 2 were stabbed, 3 were almost robbed by bandits, and 10 were groped by several men and women alike. It was a little scary, to say the very least. Luckily, the second batch of clones had better luck and he was getting an idea of how to act in this world. Not far from his current location, the clones had stumbled across an area where the people spoke a variation of one of the languages Naruto had learned during his training trip with Jiraiya. Over the course of the next week, Naruto, thanks to his clones, was able to learn the new language and start getting some information about what the hell was going on. It was slow going at first, splitting his time between training himself and having clones hanged to look like his friends and the people he had met during his journeys learn the new language. Eventually he felt comfortable enough that he felt it was time he personally stepped out of the woods and into this new world. Once again using henge to disguise himself, Naruto began his new journey. As it turned out, Naruto was currently in a city named New York, in the state of New York, in the country of United States of America. When he got his hands on a map of the place, he had nearly shit himself. The place was huge, the city alone was larger than the Fire Country, and when you looked at the bigger map of the country, you could have fit all the known elemental countries on the eastern seacoast of United States of America. The scale was just beyond anything Naruto had ever dealt with before. When he learned that people needed machines to get from place to place in a decent amount of time, he had fully understood that this could not be his world. Several attempts at contacting Kurama for help had failed. It was only when he finally ventured into his mindscape that he figured out why. The fox, or what was left of it, was now about the size of a puppy and was so deeply asleep that even screaming in Kurama's ear had failed to wake him. The other major difference were the pipes that represented his and Kurama's chakra. Where before they had been large, maybe as big around as his waist, now they were huge. The smallest one he found was wider than he was tall, with all the rest being larger than the largest tree trunks he had ever seen. It was crazy, pure insanity, that he could have that much chakra in his system, but the proof was right in front of him. Oh, and just to add to the madness, he now had two other sets of pipes, one green and one white. He assumed the green ones represented nature chakra and the white ones represented the combination of his and Kurama's, but that was just a theory until the fox woke up and explained it to him. It was another 2 weeks before Naruto realized that as things stood, he was ill-prepared to survive in this new world. The cold hard truth was that unlike his own world, here he was going to need money and identification papers if he was going to function in this new land. Money wasn't a major issue for him considering he had about 500 gold ryo in his wallet, his good old faithful Gamma-kun, and another 10,000 he had hidden in a seal on the back of his headband. A little research, not the perverted kind, had revealed that pure gold was worth a lot here in this land, and that was going to work out well for him. A visit to a pawn shop and the loss of 20 ryo had earned him almost 4,000 American dollars, barely half what they were worth, but he couldn't be picky when he was trying to keep a low profile. Thankfully he had taken to the roofs right after leaving the shop, as the owner had sent 2 thugs after him, clearly with the intent to get the rest of Naruto's coins and the man's money back from him. Too bad for them that he was long gone by the time they thought to look up at the roof above them. Naruto was positive he could have handled them in a straight-up fight, but that would have drawn attention he didn't need, so it was better to run and hide for now. As he was still living in the trees of Central Park, that was what the people called the forest in the middle of the city, Naruto only used his money for things he really needed, like takeout food and toiletries. Oh, how he had missed toilet paper and toothpaste. Don't even get him started on bath soap and laundry detergent. The discovery of what a laundromat was still ranked up there on his "thank Kami" list. It was while he was doing laundry one night that he met his current employer. Mr. Sasaki owned a small Japanese restaurant near the park that was in serious need of a delivery boy. Now, considering Japanese was a dead-on match for Naruto's natural language and the fact that the old man was willing to pay him cash for his work, the young shinobi felt he was in luck. By the next afternoon he was driving a beat-up scooter around Manhattan delivering food to offices and apartment buildings. This worked out for him because Naruto's first delivery was to a library. Not just any library, but the biggest damned library he had ever seen in his life. By that night he was living in an empty room in the place, and his clones were reading everything they could get their hands on all day long, each hanged into a random person Naruto saw around the city. Jiraiya had told him that knowledge was power, and Naruto was thinking this was a sign from Kami above that it was time to live up to that advice. He read everything he got his hands on. It might have been against his basic nature, but you didn't always get what you wanted. From masterpieces of literature to crappy tabloids, Naruto read it. This world's history? He memorized it. Scientific treatises on the most esoteric theories? He soaked them up. It took him 2 months and more clones than there were people in the city, but he read the entire contents of the library, including several of the rare books stored away from public view. What he learned was both wondrous and heartbreaking, but it was worth it in the end, as at least now he had an idea as to what he needed to do if he was going to live in this world. The first step was to create a background for himself and get identity papers. That wouldn't be so hard if he cashed in a few more Rio and found the right people. It took him another month to make the contacts he needed. Finding the right sort of people was easy, as just like in his world, the underworld figures he needed were always easy to find if you knew where to look. Thankful again for Jiraiya's training, Naruto traded money and favors for the paperwork he needed. He wasn't thrilled with working for crime lords, but with the proper application of skill and henge, he was able to get away with his morals intact and even prevented a few innocent people from having to suffer. In the end, Naruto was the proud owner of a set of identification papers that would at least allow him to rent an apartment rather than living in a dusty old attic. That was when he met her. He had just rented a relatively nice studio apartment in the Bronx and was in the process of moving in when he got ran over by a black and orange blur with long blonde hair and blue eyes. A shouted apology as the young woman ran down the street was all he got out of her that first meeting, but something inside him said he should know who the mysterious girl was. He pushed the thought away until later that day when he was looking at the mailboxes in the entryway. The name listed for apartment 4A, the one right across from his own, was N. Namikaze. Okay, that got his interest considering that was the last name of his father, but it was the little chibi figure next to the name that drew his attention. It was the tiny female figure with the big smile, pigtails, and throwing up a peace sign that really had him wondering what the hell was going on. That night, after he finished setting up his apartment and made some ramen for dinner, Naruto climbed the fire escape to the roof. He might not be able to see the stars as well here as he had back in Konoha, but it was peaceful up on the roof, and that had to count for something. He had just finished his ramen when he heard someone opening the stairwell access door. Not sure if he was actually allowed up on the roof, Naruto dashed for a shadowy corner and waited to see who was coming. Much to his surprise, it was the same girl that had run him over earlier in the day. What was even more surprising was that he recognized her. Boy, did he recognize her, as he had seen her up close and personal on many occasions. There, the illusion made flesh, was a woman that was the perfect embodiment of his first original jutsu, the Why no Jutsu. She was about his height with long blonde hair, tied back in two pigtails, that still managed to hang down to her waist. Her eyes were a perfect match for his own sapphire blue eyes, though her eyes seemed much larger than his own. While his face was harsh and squared off, hers was soft and heart-shaped. Where he was broad-shouldered and muscular, she was slim and shapely. Very shapely considering the tight black bicycle shorts and skin-tight t-shirt she was wearing left very little to the imagination. He would have thought the whole outfit was painted on if he hadn't watched the hem of her shirt move up and down as she walked closer to the center of the roof. It was just really freaky to watch a female version of himself that wasn't one of his clones walking around. He watched her for several minutes as she took a seat on one of the brick half walls, looking up at the sky and sighing a great deal. He was just about to sneak away when she started talking. Even with his enhanced senses he could not hear her at first, but then she started speaking louder. He was rather freaked out when she started talking to someone, but a moment later he figured it out. She was talking to her parents, and from the sound of it they had been dead for a long time. Something else it seemed they had in common. Well, I got fired again, she was saying, just loud enough for Naruto to hear it. My boss got a little grabby this afternoon and decided the place his hands needed to be was on my ass. I wasn't going to stand for that, so I hauled off and hit him in the nose. Broke the damn thing and had him laying on the ground crying like a little bitch as I tossed my order pad at him and headed for my locker. By the time I was changed and on my way out the door he was screaming how I was fired and would never work for him again. I'm not sure, I thought he figured out I quit, but fired works just as well. Looks like I'm heading to the unemployment office again. I hope you aren't too disappointed in me, guys. She seemed to think of something as she looked back up at the sky. Oh, and I really need to find the guy the first knocked over this morning. I feel real bad about that, but I was running late and could only say sorry as I ran down the street. I didn't get a good look at him, but he looked familiar, not to mention cute. Mom, I swear, I just saw his back for a moment, but he's got the broadest shoulders I've ever seen. Talk about hot. Naruto was blushing when he heard that, deciding it might be a good thing to make himself scarce before he heard anything that really embarrassed him. Now Naruto was never a firm believer in a kami, or fate, or any of that stuff, and maybe what happened next was their way of saying, yes, we do exist. He was just getting ready to leap off the side of the building and head back to his apartment through the front door when his foot slipped on something and he found himself laying face first on the roof. The shriek that followed his slip was followed a second later by the sound of someone diving behind something. Naruto looked up and found two pigtails sticking out over the top of the wall the girl had been sitting on a moment before. "You know, I can see you," he said with a chuckle as he sat up. "I'm really sorry I scared you. See, I just moved in today and didn't know if we were allowed up here, so I kind of hid when I heard you come up. You were having a private moment and I didn't want to interrupt, so I was just going to leave and let you have your privacy. Unfortunately, my feet decided I needed to lay down and forgot to mention it to my head. Sorry." This all tumbled out of his mouth in one long exhalation as he was sitting up and rubbing the back of his head, feeling more than a little embarrassed. "Basically, I'm an idiot and I'm sorry. I'll go." "Wait," she called as he got up and turned to leave. "Who are you?" Turning back around with a look of embarrassment, Naruto replied, "Sorry, forgot the manners my ba-chan tried to teach me. My name is Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki. Like I said, I just moved in today. I think we actually met this morning, though you were in kind of a hurry at the time." The young woman finally stuck her head up to look over the half-wall, allowing Naruto to get a better look at her. He noticed her pigtails were set above and a little behind her ears, giving her a young and innocent look. He also noticed that her bangs hung down, almost completely covering her eyes, which made him think she was hiding behind them. She had a cute little nose that almost begged for someone to kiss the tip. She wore a little frown on her full lips, which Naruto noticed were a natural dark pink. All in all, she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Part of his mind reminded him she was a dead ringer for himself when he used the Wai no Jutsu, which the only thing that kept him from falling in love with her right that very moment. "I'm really sorry about that," she said, her voice sounding like something an angel would be jealous of. "I was running late. I really didn't mean to knock you over. Hey, I've been late a time or 12 myself, so no worries," Naruto instantly replied, wondering why his cheeks felt warm when she smiled at him. "How about we start over? Forget about this morning and tonight?" Walking over and out into the moonlight, Naruto held out a hand to the young woman with a warm smile on his face. "Like I said, I'm Naruto and I live here now. What's your name?" The young woman gasped when she saw him, her cheeks getting darker in the moonlight as she stood up and took Naruto's hand. "This is going to sound odd, but we've almost got the same name. My name is Naruto. Naruko Namikaze, and it's a pleasure to meet you, Naruto." "Namikaze?" he asked, going pale at the sound of the name. "My father's last name was Namikaze." Naruto looked a bit shocked by that news, saying, "Wow, I thought it was just a made-up name? You mean it's a real family? Do you think we are related?" Probably not, since I think my dad's family was from an isolated village in Japan," replied Naruto, once again wondering about the chances of her being a female version of him in this world. "Still, we can be friends, so that's got to count for something, right?" They spent several hours up on the roof talking that night. They shared bits and pieces of their lives, surprised at how much they had in common, and while Naruto could not tell her all the details of his life, he could share some of it. As it turned out, they were both orphans as he had thought. Naruko's parents, Shinji and Orihime Namikaze, had been killed when she was only a year old. The family had been living in Hawaii since shortly before Naruko's birth and had decided to vacation in New York shortly after her first birthday. Unfortunately, there had been a car accident and both her parents were killed. As she had no other blood relations, Naruko was put into foster care until she was old enough to apply for emancipation when she turned 16. As she had money from her parents to live on, she had moved into the apartment she still lived in and finished of high school locally. After graduation, she had received a scholarship to attend Long Island University, majoring in dance and theater. Unfortunately, even though she was able to live off campus and save money there, her scholarship had been cut due to the budget and she was having to work nights in order to pay her tuition. At the rate she was going now, she feared she would have to drop out as the money from her parents was going to run out soon, and then she would have to work just to afford rent, forget about school. Naruto, in a rare moment of understanding, hugged Naruto when she started to cry and found her sudden grip around his waist to be tighter than anything Tsunade or Sakura had ever managed. As she collected herself, Naruto told her about his history. He explained that he had been born and raised in a small village in Japan, only recently coming to the United States. He told her about how he was also an orphan, his parents being killed in a fire just an hour after his birth. He skipped over the nastier bits about his childhood, just telling her that he had lived alone most of his life. Naruto chuckled when he told her about how he never really paid attention in school, mainly because he spent so much time pranking people that deserved it, but that as he grew older he realized he had a knack for learning things faster than other people. Finally he told her about how his village had been destroyed in a natural disaster, an earthquake, and that had led him to coming here. "I left so quickly I didn't even really know where I was going until I got here," he said with a sad smile, knowing it was a half-truth. "When I finally got my bearings, I lived off of what little savings I was able to bring with me, but that won't last forever." He really wanted to tell her more, speaking half-truths and whole lies just did not sit right with him, but the truth would have made him sound crazy. So, he told her about his life in New York since his arrival. He told her how he had found work and refined his language skills with the help of Mr. Sasaki and the customers he delivered to. She commented that his English sounded almost perfect, save for a few things that were barely noticeable. Then he told her about how he was trying to find his niche in the world and how he wanted to help people, but just didn't know how he wanted to go about it. Naruto, who had yet to let go of him and was currently snuggling into his chest, admitted that she sometimes thought about ways to help people, but just didn't know what she could do. "I'm just a girl who happens to be good at dancing," she mumbled, her voice sounding thick as if she were falling asleep. "I would like to do more, but what can I do? It's not like I'm a superhero." Naruto looked down to find Naruto blissfully asleep in his arms. He smiled as he watched her sleep. Realizing that it was quite late, Naruto scooped her up in his arms and carried her bridal style down the fire escape to his window. He made his way across his apartment, summoning a clone to open the door for him, but when he tried the door to her apartment he found it was locked. He sent the clone to her window, hoping it was unlocked, but the clone dispelled, allowing him to see that the window was locked tight. Now normally he would have just had a clone pick the lock and go from there, but seeing as he did not want to freak Naruto out, so the only option he had was for her to stay in his apartment for the night. Returning to his room, Naruto laid her down on his bed and covered her up. Going to the closet he pulled out a spare blanket and pillow he had purchased earlier that day and flopped down on his couch. It wasn't the biggest couch in the world, a fact proven when his feet hung over the end, but it would do for the night. The last thought in his mind as he drifted off to sleep was that for the first time ever a girl was sleeping in his bed, and unfortunately he wasn't there to enjoy it. With that thought, he drifted off to sleep and enjoyed a night of dreams about Naruto and him walking hand in hand through the forests of Konoha. The next morning he woke up when someone was gently poking his shoulder. Now it wasn't something that was well known, mostly because the situation had never presented itself before, but Naruto liked to cuddle. This combined with years of instincts drilled into him, and after the poke he grabbed hold of the offending person, pulled them up tight against him, and then pulled the sheets over them both as he drifted off back to sleep. This lasted for all of about a minute as the person he had just pulled into his arms got her blushing under control before she managed to turn her head just enough to whisper in his ear. "If you don't let me go by the time I count to 10, I'm going to have to stay here like this all day and never want to leave," said the voice of an angel. "Warm," he mumbled, half asleep. "Sleep now. Wake up later." "Naruto," said the voice again. "Are you awake?" "No," he mumbled. "Pillow is loud." Pillow not supposed to be loud. It was the giggle that pulled his mind from slumberland and into the waking world. Wait a minute. Pillows don't talk and they don't have heartbeats. Oh crap. Forcing his eyes open, Naruto came face to face with Naruto. The fact she was so close to his face that he could count her eyelashes was a bit startling. Add that to the devilish grin on her face, not to mention the very pretty blush, and he was fairly certain he was about to catch hell for this. Oh, did he forget to mention that one of Naruto's very long and shapely legs was currently laying across his hips and that his little buddy was awake and standing at attention. Not helping was the fact he had one hand resting on her thigh while the other was wrapped around her waist, meaning her rather ample chest was firmly pressed against his side, not helping the current issue with his little buddy. "Please, don't kill me," he begged as he slowly removed his hands from their positions. I plead stupidity and being a rather sound sleeper for anything I may have done. Sorry. Oh, I don't know, cooed Naruto. I've rather enjoyed it, so far. I do have a question for you. Why am I in your apartment and why did I wake up in your bed? The fact she had not moved from her current position. In fact, she was now resting her head against his chest on which she was tracing little circles with her fingers just confused the hell out of him. After a moment of thought, a tiny little sliver of time, he wrapped his arm back around her waist, though he did not put his other hand back on her thigh. Instead, he laid his free hand on top of hers, stopping her from tracing those little spirals when she entwined her fingers with his. Once again, that little part of his mind that worried about things warned him that she was a dead ringer for himself as a woman, though he instantly ignored it. You fell asleep on the roof last night and your door was locked when I came down, he explained, enjoying the smell of her hair. You seemed really out of it, so I just put you in my bed and crashed on the couch. I guess that makes sense, she murmured. It's kind of my fault since I locked the door before heading to the roof. But if you locked the door, how are you going to get back in? He asked. No offense, but you don't really have any pockets in those shorts. Naruto giggled, letting go of his hand for a moment before sliding her hand down towards his waist. For a moment he thought she was going to do something he wasn't sure he was ready for, but secretly really wished she would do. While she did not do what he thought she was going to do, he did feel her hand move between their hips for a moment before she brought it back up and showed that it now held a single key. His mind wandered to where that key must have been based on where she had just pulled it from and he envied that key. You're right, I don't have pockets in these shorts, she explained with a little giggle. That doesn't mean I didn't have someplace to keep my key. The two of them talked for a little while, curled up on his couch and speaking in whispers. Naruto secretly wondered if this was what having a lover was like. Quiet moments spent together with no intention of doing anything else other than just being together. He had never had something like that before, not that he could remember at any rate. There were a lot of blanks in his memory that seemed to grow larger and larger after meeting his mother when he originally defeated Kurama. He knew he had won the war, but it was the details like who he had fought and how he won were a complete blank. So, for all he knew he had at some point had a moment like this before, but with Naruto at his side at the moment he realized it just didn't matter. Eventually they said their goodbyes for the day, agreeing to see each other again that night. Thankfully it was still early, so neither of them had to skip work or classes. As Naruto left she kissed him on the cheek before closing the door to her apartment, leaving a blushing Naruto in the hallway with a grin on his face that did not fade all day long. Sure, there had been the occasional woman in his life that teased him. Some were actually rather blunt about what they wanted, like Shion. The problem was, Naruto was clueless back then and considering how his life had been going in his own world, he probably would have remained that way until some young woman beat him over the head and forced him to realize what was going on. It was only coming here, to this strange new world, that had forced him to grow up and open his eyes. It was amazing what someone could learn from reading, and with the vast number of books his clones had read for him, Naruto had learned a lot. He had learned how to be a better person than he had been before. Most of all he had learned that women might find his naivete to be cute at first, but eventually you either had to step up and make a move or you were going to end up alone. He might not be the man he wanted to be, yet, but he had a chance for a new life and he wasn't going to waste it acting the clueless buffoon. That night Naruto made dinner for them in her apartment. It was a cozy little place that seemed to fit her perfectly, not to mention he loved all the orange she seemed to have all over the place. It was only when he saw a picture of her parents, a tall man with sandy brown hair and a shorter woman with blonde hair and blue eyes, that he let out a little sigh of relief, glad her parents hadn't looked like his. The thought that she might be this world's version of him had nagged him all day, but now it just seemed like dumb luck about her looks and name. Add the fact that when she invited him over she had been wearing a rather form-fitting knee-length black skirt, a tight white blouse with the top 3 buttons undone to reveal a hint of cleavage, black stockings that had a seam running up the back, and black high heels. Yeah, he was really glad her parents looked completely different than his, because the thoughts going through his head should never, ever be about someone that could be related to him. Thank Kami, he mumbled as she walked over and grabbed them something to drink, the sway of her hips nearly making him drool. Things kind of settled like that for a while. Naruto and Naruto would alternate nights at each other's apartments making dinner and just hanging out. By unspoken agreement they had not really taken their relationship past cuddling and the occasional kiss on the cheek. Both felt the other was the missing part of them they had always been looking for. Months passed like that and it was almost a year before things changed, as things always do. Naruto had attempted to get into college, hoping his fake identity would hold up and allow it, but when he saw the type of information they wanted he had been forced to give the idea up. This led to him spending more and more time training while Naruto was at school. His clones had never stopped training, but now he spent several hours physically training each day as well. Oddly, he barely had to work at all to keep his body in top condition, as it seemed his body was just faster and stronger than it had ever been before. In fact, if he had to gauge his physical condition now he would have to say he was well past cage level. Each day he pushed a little harder and each day he was surprised to discover that things he had once struggled with were quite easy for him now. His speed was phenomenal, exceeding anything he had ever achieved before. As for his strength, he kept trying to find his physical limit, but had yet to really find one. He quit trying one night when he attempted to lift a parked car one night and found it to be quite easy, almost too easy. The only thing he noticed was the slightest pull on his chakra, almost as if his subconscious mind was channeling chakra to his body without him having to focus on it. It was 2 nights later when he found something to test himself against. Naruto was working a double shift because the other delivery guy had quit that afternoon. Mr. Sasaki offered Naruto time and a half, plus a bonus for every on-time delivery if only he would cover until the old man could hire somebody new the next day. After agreeing, Naruto called Naruko to explain he wouldn't be home till late and that she shouldn't wait up for him. It was his last delivery of the night to a guy working at the Apollo Theater and Naruto wanted to get it done as quickly as possible because he had a bad feeling. He was just leaving the Apollo when his gut told him he was in deep shit. Sure enough, the biggest and ugliest thing he had ever seen suddenly started wreaking the place. The creature, he sure couldn't call it a guy considering it only barely looked human, started attacking anything that moved, whether it be people or cars. Moving as fast as he could, Naruto started grabbing people and moving them to safety. Twice he had to jump in front of cars that were flying towards innocents on the street. Surprisingly enough, the cars did no damage to him, other than tearing his clothes in a couple places. He was starting to get pissed when something hit the ground behind him. A moment later another huge creature crawled out of the ground and attacked the first creature. Naruto backed off that point, not wanting to get between the two. Instead he sped around the area making sure no one got hurt, never realizing that the whole thing was being watched from multiple angles by several different government agencies. By the time Naruto made it home that night he was a wreck. At last count he had saved over 200 people from being crushed, burnt, or worse. He had eventually made about 50 clones to help him contain the damage before he went to find the 2 creatures that had caused all the chaos in the first place. It was all over save the crying when he did find them, so with the fight over he took to the roofs and hurried his way home. Calling Mr. Sasaki and explaining that his scooter had been destroyed, Naruto hoped the old man wouldn't fire him. Thankfully the whole thing had been on the television, so his boss accepted the story and stated he would rather Naruto be alive and the scooter dead rather than the other way around. Unfortunately, that's when he walked in his door and found Naruko crying on his bed. It seemed she had also been watching the news and knew Naruto was in that area. The fact his clothes were shredded but he was still in one piece was enough to satisfy her that he was alive, but the kiss she gave him was what really confirmed it. That night after Naruko had fallen asleep in his arms, Naruto began to think about what he wanted from this new life. So far he hadn't really done much, other than learning to drive a scooter and delivering a crap load of Chinese takeout all over the city. It struck him that as he often had in the past, he was wasting on opportunity to be a better person. He had read the entire contents of the New York Public Library, but had he really done anything with that new knowledge? No, he had ignored most of it, focusing only on the things that could be used immediately. He was being a knucklehead again, and this time he had no one to blame for himself. It was no wonder people had grown frustrated with him in his younger years. He kept overlooking the fact that he was only as skilled or as weak as he allowed himself to be. Right now, he was weak because he had not used the tools he had available to himself. As he looked at Naruko, mesmerized by the sight of her, he realized that he wanted to be more than he had ever been before. He wanted to be a good man, not just a boy with potential. I'm going to get better, Naruto, he whispered as he finally closed his eyes and began to drift off. I've got a reason to, now. Naruto's point of view. This point of view inspired by Hello, performed by Martin Solveig and Dragonette. Naruto was leaning up against the door, listening until she heard the door across the hall close before she squealed and started jumping around the room. Not only was Naruto the cutest guy she had ever met, but he was so damned nice it just blew her away. Sure, she had been a bit freaked when she woke up in a strange bedroom, but the fact she was fully dressed and he was asleep on the couch rather than in bed with her was a good sign that nothing had happened. Oh, let's not forget when she tried to wake him up and he pulled her into his arms. Those incredible arms, attached to a chest that just screamed why even with a t-shirt on. She hadn't been kidding when she said she would have stayed right there all day long if she could have. For the first time in her life she had felt really safe. She had lived in multiple foster homes before she turned 18. Some of them were great, but others had been less than stellar. The older she got, the worse it was, especially if there were men or boys already in the house. She had lost count of the number of times someone in one of her families had tried to put the moves on her. It had gotten to the point where she had basically given up on men, figuring she would either have to start batting for the home team or just get used to diner for one for the rest of her life. Then she met Naruto and it had all changed. In one night and part of a morning he had already changed her entire outlook on life. Then of course she had kissed his cheek. I kissed him, she squealed, still jumping around the room as she remembered the sensation of her lips on his skin. Part of her wanted to go right back over there and knock on his door until he answered. Then she would kiss him for real, but that might make her seem just a little too eager. Another part hoped her would be the one to knock on her door, with him being the one to sweep her of her feet and kiss her. She blushed at the thought of that as she grabbed clean clothes and headed towards the bathroom. Naruto was sure she was going to need an extra long shower today. An hour later when she headed out to class, she debated on knocking on Naruto's door, but managed to stop herself and head to class. That didn't mean she was able to think of anything else that day as she attended classes and later went to look for a new job. She struck out on the job front, but was able to do some grocery shopping and decided to head home and make dinner for them. Naruto was a fairly decent cook. God knows she had been required to do enough of it for her various foster families, so that wasn't an issue. However, she wanted to really make an impression on Naruto, and the baggy jeans, faded hoodie, and worn-out keds were not going to make the impression she wanted. As she started boiling noodles for the fettuccine alfredo she was making for tonight, she headed to her closet to see what she had available. She groaned as she realized she hadn't done laundry yet this week, leaving her closet rather barren save for a few odds and ends. That's when she remembered the skirt and blouse she had bought for a job interview that fell through. The outfit consisted of a knee-length black pencil skirt she had bought at a thrift shop, a white blouse that she bought when she was waiting tables at a nicer restaurant, and her favorite pair of high heels that she hadn't worn in ages. Running back to check on water for the noodles, she grabbed the clothes and headed for the bathroom. Okay, granny panties and a plain boulder holder, not going to work with this outfit, she growled as she stripped off her clothes and looked in the mirror. Naruto was a few weeks away from turning 16 and was to be a bridesmaid for her foster parents' only biological daughter, Emily. Emily was 18 years old, 7 months pregnant, ugly as sin, and marrying the drunken frat boy she had gotten knocked up by. Oh, she was also a complete bitch to Naruto for the entire 2 years she lived with them. 2 years of effectively being a slave for their family and trying desperately to keep his foster father's hands off her when he was drunk. Emily had wanted Naruto to be in the wedding party, not because she had any genuine good intentions, but because she thought it would be fun to embarrass her. Out of the 4 bridesmaids, each girl had a different colored dress that matched the tuxedo of their date. Naruto's dress had been baby shit green and made her look more like a homeless woman than anything else. Knowing she couldn't get out of the wedding without making a scene, Naruto had agreed. The day before the wedding she had decided that if she had to look ugly on the outside, she was going to be beautiful on the inside. On her way home from school the Friday before the wedding, she stopped by the local mall and headed for one of the nicer clothing stores there. She had seen the white lace shelf bra and matching thong panties in a clearance bin at the back of the store and decided they were exactly what she needed. The lingerie set had been a bit big on her at the time. A few safety pins had solved the problem at the time, and as she looked herself in the mirror the next day she had smiled, feeling truly beautiful for the first time ever. The next day she stood there, her hair a disaster thanks to the stylist her sister hired to do their hair, her dress still looking like crap, and everyone looking at her like she was a disgrace, but Naruto just smiled to herself. No matter what she looked like on the outside, she was beautiful on the inside. Yeah, I need this tonight. Grabbing a new packet of stockings, she headed back to the bathroom to finish getting ready. It didn't really take her long to get ready, and once she was dressed she turned to look at the full-length mirror on the back of the bathroom door. She looked beautiful, even if it was just her saying it. Now around the mirror were dozens of little multicolored post-it notes. Each had different message that she read on a regular basis to make up for the things she had been told over the years. Normally she read them every morning, but she had been in a hurry this morning, forgetting them completely. The colorful notes looked so cheerful, but they represented her attempt to forget some of the darkest days of her life. They were her positive affirmations and were a part of what kept her sane. I am beautiful. I am intelligent. I am not a freak. I am not fat. People do like me. I am talented. I am a good person. I will find someone to love me. Reading the last one, Naruto stopped and smiled as she touched it with her fingers and smiled. Her last foster family had always told her the day she moved out that she would never find anyone to love her, and it had been the one that seemed to haunt her the most. Now, having met Naruto, she hoped that particular post-it would be coming off her mirror soon. She had felt a connection with him the night before and again that morning. His smile had filled her stomach with butterflies and made her heart flutter. Sure, there were some obstacles they would have to overcome, namely the fact that she wasn't exactly normal, but that was something she could deal with in time. After all, she had just met the guy, so telling him all her secrets on the first date was not high up on her list of things to do. Given time she might trust him with everything, but not right now. For right now, she just wanted to see if he was the one. Time would tell. With a smile on her face, Naruto left the bathroom and headed for her door. Time to make an impression. Time had passed as it always did. Naruto and Naruko were happy, or as happy as two love-struck people can be when they are living hand-to-mouth most days. Naruto knew he could make their lives a lot easier if he just traded in more of his Ryo from his old world, but recently he had gotten the impression he was being watched, and that didn't sit well with him. It had started after the night the Hulk, that's what the papers had called the Green Creature, had defended Harlem, and ever since then he had an itch on the back of his neck like people were watching him. He didn't know who they were good at keeping out of sight, and that made him nervous. It was only the fact that he didn't detect any negative emotions from them that kept Naruto from hunting them down to get some answers. That and the fact that he was afraid Naruko would get caught in the crossfire. There was another issue, Naruko. It was almost 2 years since they had started seeing each other, and they were both reluctant to move their relationship into a more physical realm. For Naruto it was the nagging thought that maybe, just maybe, they were related in some strange fashion. Who was he to say that she wasn't this world's version of him, even if her parents looked nothing like him? That thought alone kept his more amorous thoughts in check, but it was obvious that Naruko also had reasons. They shared a bed each night, and though things sometimes got fairly hot and heavy, she never complained when he stepped back to let things cool down. Naruto wondered if she had similar thoughts to his, though he never asked for fear of the answer. Another odd thing about his life was the circle of friends he was gathering around himself. A few months back he had been called to deliver food to the site of a new building that was being constructed in downtown Manhattan. The place was going to be huge when complete, and Naruto couldn't wait to see what the finished product looked like. Still, it was the owner that really caught his attention. The guy's name was Tony Stark, and he reminded Naruto so much of his old mentor Jiraiya that it was scary. One delivery and a short conversation led to another delivery and another conversation. Soon Naruto was introduced to Tony's assistant, Pepper Potts, a very lovely young woman that in many ways reminded Naruto of Shizune, Tsunade's student and assistant. Soon Naruto and Naruko were being invited over just to hang out with Tony and Pepper, who seemed to be tiptoeing around each other and the obvious relationship they were heading towards. Life was strange, but good for Naruto, at least until he accidentally drew more attention to himself. At first he thought it was just a random event, but later he would understand that the events of that morning put him firmly in the sights of a rather secretive government agency. What happened was Naruto was delivering food to some guards in an unnamed government building. The guys were regulars and Naruto always shared a joke or two with them before heading off to his next delivery. That day things were a bit different as just before he could leave an alarm went off in the building and people started rushing around like crazy. Not wanting to get caught up in the situation, Naruto turned to leave when a young man in a t-shirt and khaki pants ran into him, literally. It didn't seem like anything important, but considering Naruto had just enough warning of the impending impact to channel chakra to his muscles, the guy ran into him and bounced off him like he had hit a solid wall. The guy looked a bit surprised, but bounced back up to his feet and was out the door in a moment. Naruto brushed it off and went on his way while people chased after the guy, but since then he had noticed that even more people seemed to be following him. Now the smart thing to do would have been to get the hell out of New York and go to ground until things blew over. The problem was that he just could not bring himself to leave Naruto and he couldn't ask her to leave her education behind just for him. So, being the knucklehead that he was, Naruto just sucked it up and kept his eyes open for anyone that might mean them any harm. He still wasn't feeling any negative emotions, but the general sense of curiosity and a hint of fear was clear to him. It was starting to get on his nerves until he got some answers from a surprising source. Naruto and Naruto were invited over to Tony's new penthouse apartment at the top nearly complete Stark Tower. The place was amazing, at least to Naruto's eyes considering he had never seen a place like it. Tony was in the process of giving him the tour while Pepper and Naruto were talking about female things. They had just stepped out onto the balcony when Tony finally seemed to get serious. Now the words serious and Tony did not belong in the same sentence, let alone the same city, but Naruto could tell from the way Tony was standing that he had something on his mind. You know, I'm a rather self-centered person, Tony began with a smirk. I admit it, mainly because it's true. Thing is, I'm also paranoid after some of the things that have happened in my life. So, I'm asking you for your forgiveness in advance. Oh, this don't sound good, groaned Naruto, getting a chuckle out of Tony. Yeah, it's really not, admitted Tony with a sad smile. Naruto, I like you, you're a good guy. Problem is, in my experience, good guys aren't always what they seem to be, so I did some digging. Naruto sighed, taking a sip from the coke Tony had given him earlier. Let me guess, that digging had to do with me? Tony nodded, leaning against the railing of the balcony and looking out over the city. Yep, you guessed it. Imagine my surprise when I discovered that you don't really exist. Sure, you've got some really good fake documents, but they only go back to a little over 2 years ago. Before that, nothing. No medical history. No school records. Nothing. Just a blank. I checked the records in Japan, still nothing. I checked immigration, nada. You're a ghost and that means you are one of two things. Either you're a spy sent to keep an eye on me and what I'm doing, or you're an illegal immigrant. Now, just between the two of us, I'm hoping you're just an illegal because I can fix that for you, but if you're a spy then we're going to have some problems. It's only the fact I've seen your name mentioned in a few government reports, all of which say you are not a threat, that's kept me from having you tossed out of the building and possibly country. Damn it, Tony, couldn't you just leave things alone? Asked a frustrated Naruto as he leaned back against the railing, looking in through the window at where Naruto and Pepper were chatting on the couch. No, I'm not a spy, but I am here in this world, illegally, if that's what you want to call it. World? Asked Tony. Not country, but world? That explains a lot. Fuck, I didn't mean to say that, groaned Naruto. Fine, you want the truth? I'll tell you the truth, or at least as much of it as I know. Naruto told Tony everything that he could remember. He told him about his own world, a world in which technology took a backseat to the power of chakra. Then he told Tony about his life, the ups and the downs, but especially about his life as a shinobi. He skimmed over the war, mainly because he couldn't remember most of it, before he got to the bits he was only guessing about. About how he knew he must have been injured during the last battle and how something had happened to send him to this world. Naruto then gave Tony all the details about his first few months in living here in this world and how eventually he had met Naruto and decided to settle down, even if he did still train like crazy at night. Another world, mused Tony. Similar and yet different than this one, maybe even a different version of reality, the possibilities for study. I'd say you were nuts if I hadn't suspected something like that from some sensor readings I took of you the last time you were here. Subtle variations in the quantum level harmonics. Great, the pit just gets deeper and deeper, sighed Naruto before cutting Tony off. Next you'll tell me you took DNA samples as well. The rather embarrassed look on Tony's face answered that one is the man tuned to Naruto. Okay, so I'm a jerk and I already admitted I'm paranoid. Sue me. No, wait, you can't. We got to fix that. So, the DNA results were interesting, to say the least. You've heard of mutants? Naruto nodded, rather afraid where this was going as Tony continued. Mutants have a 0.05% variation in their base genetic code that causes their abilities to manifest. You on the other hand have a 1% variation in the DNA that matches a human. However, you also have about 50% more genetic material, and no traces of junk DNA anywhere. You're human, at least your body appears that way, but you're like what humans could be after a few million years worth of evolution. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Asked Naruto, rather worried about the answer. Tony shrugged, turning back to look over the city again as he spoke. Well, it's different, that much I can tell you. I had Jarvis run numerous tests and the results were amazing. You've got the ability to regenerate from almost any wound that doesn't kill you instantly. Hell, even then I'm not sure you wouldn't regenerate over time. Don't even get me started on aging. Jarvis ran the test several times and they all point to the fact you're going to live a very long time thanks to your cells regenerating perfectly each time. Lovely, groaned Naruto as he looked inside at Naruto. I'll get to outlive everyone I love and care about. Not exactly something I'm looking forward to. Tony turned to look inside and smiled sadly. Can't imagine you would like that bit, but given your abilities, most of which I can only guess at, I can tell you one thing that might give you some peace. Yeah, you going to tell me that you found a way for me to go home? 'Cause that's not exactly what I'm looking for right now, replied Naruto with a dry tone of voice and a frown. No, can't say I've figured that one out, not that I even really looked into it, much, admitted Tony. Now this bit might piss you off a bit, but I did it after our last conversation about that young lady in there. Naruto remembered that conversation. Actually, it was a partially drunken ramble they had about 2 weeks before. Feeling bad about his fears concerning the possibility of being related in some fashion to Naruto. It was the one and only time he had ever drank with Tony. He had needed someone to talk to and the older man reminded him so much of Jiraiya that Naruto was talking before he even realized what he was saying. Over the course of the night, and half a dozen bottles of fine whiskey, Naruto had told Tony about his fears. It never occurred to Naruto that Tony would remember the conversation considering the man was so drunk he could barely talk, let alone remember anything. Guess he had been wrong about that. Jarvis reminded me the next morning about a promise I made to you, Tony continued. I had promised to find the answers for you, which directly led to me gathering a sample of your DNA off the glass you were drinking out of that night. A few nights later when you were both here, I did the same with Naruto. Fuck, Tony, roared Naruto, glad the glass in the windows was soundproof. You had no right to do that to her. Sure, I was an unknown, but she's just a normal woman. What gave you the right to do that? Holding up his hands in surrender, Tony nodded. I know, I'm an asshole. Comes with being a genius with an ego the size of this building. Well, larger than this building, but that's besides the point. I promised you I would get you an answer and I did. You're not related to her in any way, shape or form. Yeah, the resemblance is uncanny, but that's just dumb luck. There's no chance at all? Asked Naruto, feeling a bit of hope in his belly. Tony shook his head with a smile. None. Yes, cosmetically you look the same, but inside where it counts you are as different as can be. Thank Kami, exclaimed Naruto with a smile from ear to ear. Okay, I can cut you some slack after that news, but I'm still a bit pissed. Good, because I've got some more news for you that will probably use up that slack and then some, Tony said as he walked away from the balcony and closer to the window. She may not be a blood relation, but she is a mutant. I don't have a clue what her power may be, or if she's even aware of it, but she carries the X gene, that I'm sure of. Naruto thought about it for a moment, not really caring considering some of the things he had seen and done. Not an issue. I've seen some strange things back on my original world. As far as I'm concerned, so long as she doesn't turn into a pasty white gay pedophile with a fetish for snakes, I'm fine with it. I'm not sure I want to even think about where you got that particular image from and I hate you for sharing it with me, Tony groaned, shuddering slightly. However, I think that young woman in there is going to be very happy about your views on the matter when she finally does share her secret with you, or discovers her powers for the first time. Meanwhile, Jarvis, get those papers finalized for Naruto. I want a full background, documentation, and paperwork ready to go by the end of the night. Also, give him copies of the shield reports we found on him. Yes, sir, replied the snooty British accented voice of Tony's computer system. Shall I give him a suitably clean background or something more notorious, much like your own infamous past? Wow, even your computer system knows you're an ass most of the time, complimented Naruto with a smirk. How does it feel that even an inanimate object holds you in contempt most of the time? Oh, it's just dandy, was Tony's dry reply. While Jarvis gets you on a more stable footing, I wanted to tell you I'll be heading back to Los Angeles tomorrow. I've got the Stark Expo starting in a few days, then a few other things to deal with before coming back here for the official ribbon cutting. Naruto glanced over at his friend, jerk that he could sometimes be, and nodded. Be careful, Tony. I've got a bad feeling about something. I tend to follow my gut instincts, comes with my training, and it's telling me that things are going to go bad, soon. Could also have something to do with the fact you smell like metal and sickness. Tony looked a bit shocked at that announcement. Buddy, pal, slightly creepy friend, what does that mean? Naruto looked over at Tony, noticing that the older man was sweating, just slightly. Your sweat smells like metal, like that thing in your chest. Your pupils are slightly dilated, your heart rate is increased, and your reaction time is slower than normal. I first noticed it when I brought the food over the other day, but it's worse tonight. Huh, what you know, turn around is fair play and a bitch, chuckled Tony. Okay, you told me your secret, so I'll tell you mine. The palladium in my little personal arc reactor is slowly poisoning me. Slowly but surely, my blood is turning toxic. If I can't find a solution, it's going to kill me within a few months. The use of the Iron Man armor seems to be accelerating the process, added the voice of Jarvis. So, stop using the armor, Naruto advised. Tony scoffed at the idea, turning back around to look out over the city. No can do, my fishy friend. Naruto growled at that. I knew you would figure that out eventually. It's actually Maelstrom, like the storm. Nah, I like fish and the way you are looking at me reminds me of a shark I ran into last month. Seriously, Tony, no one needs a dead hero, said Naruto, ignoring Tony's attempts at changing the topic. I don't need a dead friend. I need a living one that will have my back, just like I'll have his. You need a bodyguard, I'll be your bodyguard till you figure this out, but stay out of that fucking suit till you do. Tony sighed, finally turning to Naruto with a sad smile. The amount of time I spend in the suit as opposed to out of it really doesn't change anything. Unless I find a cure, I'm going to die one way or the other, it's just that simple. No, life is never that simple, countered Naruto. It may look like it is, but if you look underneath the underneath, there is always something more you haven't seen before. Well, then I guess I'm taking you up on your offer, replied Tony with a smirk. I may not need a bodyguard, but if you can see something I can't then you're hired. Whatever, Naruto said with a chuckle, before remember something. So, tell me about this shield. Naruto thought Tony was joking until an hour later when Pepper provided him with papers to sign, showing that he was now an official employee of Stark Enterprises. The downside was he was going to be leaving with Tony and Pepper in the morning while Naruko stayed in New York to finish the last month of her classes for the semester. The upside was Tony offered them a suite in Stark Tower, right below his own. Naruko was so excited she pounced on Tony and kissed his cheeks several times, much to Naruto's annoyance and Tony's enjoyment. Only the fact Tony kept his hands as far away from Naruko's body as possible kept the man from getting his ass handed to him. Several hours later, Naruto was lying in bed with Naruko in his arms thinking about everything that had happened that night. Tony's revelation that Naruko was a mutant came as something of a surprise, but with the number of bloodline users Naruto had met over the years, it really wasn't that big of an issue for him. The fact that there was no chance of them being related was a massive weight off his shoulders, though if he was honest with himself, the way he felt about her he probably wouldn't have cared if she was his sister. Incest was a major taboo here in this world, or at least this part of the world, but most of the major clans back on his original world had practiced it as a means of keeping their bloodlines pure. The problem was that he doubted Naruko would ever think it was acceptable and he would never do anything to hurt her, that was a promise of a lifetime. As he watched her sleep, her head resting on his chest, he just smiled as he stroked her hair, realizing that he was thinking that this would be a lifetime commitment, or at least as much of one as he could make based on the other news he had been given. An extended lifetime, something he had never even considered due to his chosen profession. Yet now in this world, with no wars to fight or enemies chasing after him, it was a very real possibility. Eventually Naruto and everyone else he knew would grow old and die, but he would live on. Did he really want to live like that? Making connections with people only to see them wither and fade over time, leaving him alone and heartbroken over and over again. What type of life would that be, to continually bury his loved ones and be forced to wait for who know how long before he was reunited with them in the next life? "What you thinking?" Naruto asked, surprising him a little as he thought she was asleep. Watching as she rolled further onto his chest so she could lay her palms against it and rest her chin on them, Naruto smiled. "I'm thinking about us and about life in general." Naruto smiled, that special smile she had that always made his troubles seem so small and unimportant. "What about us?" Feeling his own grin as she looked at him, Naruto realized something important and he suddenly felt the need to tell her. "I love you, you know. With everything I am in love with you, Naruto Namikaze." Naruto gasped, whether from the announcement itself or the amount of emotion his voice contained. He watched her cheeks color, her breathing quicken, and felt her heartbeat race as her eyes filled with tears. At first he thought maybe it was the wrong thing to say, but when she suddenly kissed him, he knew he got it right. The kiss lasted for an eternity, or at least a minute, though it was hard to tell the difference. When they finally broke apart, Naruto had a goofy grin on his face that was matched by the one on Naruto's face. "I love you, too, Naruto Uzumaki," she said with tears still falling from her eyes and a smile on her face. "I think I've loved you since that first morning in your apartment when you pulled me into your arms while you were still half asleep. I felt so safe and so warm in your arms that I never wanted to leave them, ever." "You never have to, if you don't want to," he whispered back, his own eyes feeling a little moist as he said it. The next 20 or so minutes were heated, to say the very least, but before they took that last step he stopped himself and pulled Naruto close, saying, "Not yet. I have some things I need to tell you before we go that far." "What things?" she asked, a trace of fear and frustration in her voice. So, he told her. He told her everything, from his origins to his fears about her possibly being a blood relation. He told her about his burden and partner, Kurama, to the fact that said fox had been asleep ever since they arrived on this world. Then he told her about how he felt about her and how she was the only reason he stayed in New York. Most of all he told her how much he loved her and trusted her, hoping that she could forgive him for the lies and half-truths. At first he thought she was going to get angry and reject him, but then to his surprise she giggled and kissed him again. "I kind of wondered when you were going to tell me the truth," she said after the kiss. "I've known you were different for months. I caught you making one of your clones one morning and sending it off to make us breakfast while you thought I was still asleep. At first I was a little freaked out, but then I snuck out one night to watch you train and realized that you were like me, different but special. The fact that I never felt you would hurt me, not even when I saw how deadly you could be, made me want to be patient, knowing you would tell me in your own time." Naruto slowly sat up, letting the covers fall off her bare back as she slipped out of bed to stand naked in front of him. It was far from the first time he had seen her naked, but there was something magical about the way she looked right then. Her body seemed to glow, with her lightly tanned skin, perfectly formed breasts, narrow waist, perfect hips, and long-toned legs. It was like looking at the very image of perfection. That's when he saw the change. Now Naruto had to admit that one of the things he liked the most about Naruto's body was the fact that other than a baby-fine dusting of blonde hair on her arms, and of course the hair on her head, she didn't have a trace of hair anywhere else. Something about that just made his blood pump a little faster, as it seemed to make touching her skin feel that much better. With that in mind, it was a little strange to watch as suddenly hair started to appear on her body. It started on her arms and legs, with patches appearing on her breasts and groin. Slowly it spread even as her arms started to lengthen along with her feet and face. In slow motion he watched her lean forward until she was standing on 4 legs with her ears becoming pointed and moving to the top of her head. Her delicate nose and full lips stretched out to form a muzzle with whiskers appearing after a few seconds. Maybe the most surprising sight was when not one, but 2 long fluffy tails sprouted from the base of her spine. Naruto sat up in bed with a smile as the transformation completed and Naruto sat back on her haunches. He could clearly see the worry in her eyes as she sat there waiting for him to say something. When he got out of bed and kneeled down in front of the now human-sized golden fox that Naruto had become, she cocked her head to one side with hope showing in her eyes. Naruto just smiled to her as he wrapped his arms around her neck and hugged her. "Well, that's ironic," he whispered in her ear, now pointed ear. "I always thought you were a fox and it turns out I was right. Just remember, you're my fox, now and forever." After transforming back into her human form, Naruto basically attached herself to Naruto in an embrace that would rival even Tsunade Ba-chan's best efforts. This quickly turned into another series of passionate kisses and wandering hands, only this time neither of them was content to stop there. By the time the sun rose the next morning, Naruto declared the night a SSS-ranked evening. When asked what that meant, he just kissed her again and explained that it meant sated and sleepy, which got him a poke in the side along with a giggle as they drifted off to sleep for a few hours before Naruto had to leave. Leaving was hard on them both, with Naruto making him promise to call her every chance he got. Naruto made that promise, reminding her that he never broke his promises, before he kissed her one last time before boarding Tony's private jet. Naruto spent most of the flight reading up on Stark Enterprises, which freaked Pepper and Tony out when they noticed Naruto was using 5 clones to learn everything he could in a limited amount of time. As the clones read, Naruto explained the principles behind the clone technique and chakra in general. Tony loved the idea that a human could generate that level of power, to create mass from sheer energy, and was taking notes and writing down ideas faster than anyone other than Naruto could follow. The fact that Naruto corrected several of Tony's notes led to the blonde revealing that he had read the entire contents of the New York Public Library and memorized most of it. Pepper was soon asleep as the two men began discussing some really esoteric theories, but she had a grin on her face at the thought that finally someone might be able to keep up with Tony. "So, you use all the traditional ninja stuff, right?" asked Tony as they were standing in the man's basement workshop that night. "Like swords, throwing stars, and smoke pellets?" Naruto cringed when he heard the word ninja, as it had some negative connotations in this world. "I like to think of myself as a shinobi, not a ninja. Sure, in my world we called ourselves ninja, but we were more like glorified samurai. Less of the sneaking around at night and more of the face your enemy head on type of thing. That's not to say we couldn't do everything the ninja in this world can do, but we were a little more upfront about it, but yeah, that's what I mostly use." As he was speaking, Naruto pulled out the scroll that contained all his gear. That might have been a mistake, as the moment he unsealed the contents they went off on a 20-minute tangent about subspace pockets and logic gates being used to manipulate them. Eventually they got back to the original topic, that of Naruto's gear. Laid out in front of them was a wide variety of weapons that Naruto had been carrying when he arrived on this world. Most of it was damaged, but some was still in good condition. "So, this wire?" asked Tony as he picked up a small loop of shinobi wire. "This stuff is amazing, it's finer than human hair. How the hell did they make this stuff? I take it you use it as tripwire?" Naruto shrugged, looking at the wire in Tony's hand. "I don't really know how they make it other than it involves highly focused chakra being channeled into it as it's stretched. As for the uses, it can be used as tripwire or to tie up an opponent. I've personally used it to scale buildings, and once I used it as a weapon by channeling elemental chakra through it to chop a steel pillar in half." "Jarvis, remind me to get details of elemental chakra," mumbled Tony as he sat down the wire and picked up a kunai. "Light, much lighter than it should be for this size. Jarvis, I need a full analysis of this metal. It reminds me of the gold titanium alloy I used in my suits." Naruto just stood back and watched as Tony went through all the weapons. The explosive tags were a hit, though they were mostly duds that Naruto had never had a chance to get rid of. There was also a broken ninjutsu, a few broken shuriken, and several smoke pellets. Jarvis analyzed it all, using Tony's personal fabrication equipment to replace the kunai and throwing stars. He offered to replace the ninjutsu, but Naruto admitted he never really liked the thing, so what was the point? After 2 hours, Naruto was looking at a replenished weapons supply and new shin and forearm guards, courtesy of Tony scavenging them from an early mock-up of his Iron Man armor. "Now they don't do anything cool, unlike my suits, but they will keep you safe," offered Tony as Naruto was going through a standard kata, trying to get used to the added weight on his arms and legs. I could make you some chest armor if you like? Not right now, replied Naruto with a smirk. Too much armor gets in the way when you are fighting. It dulls the senses and gives you a false sense of security, when nothing could be further from the truth. There will always be someone stronger than you, someone that can hurt you when you least expect it. Well, if they can hurt you while you are wearing my armor, they really must be packing some heat, Tony said with a confident smirk. My armor can take a hit from a tank and not buckle. Really? Naruto asked with a smirk of his own. Care to make a wager? Say, if I can dent your armor, you buy some old coins off me? Sure, was Tony's instant reply, never once thinking Naruto could even scratch his armor. If I win, and I will, you've got to wear a pink tutu and sing I'm a little teapot the next time we go out. Deal, was Naruto's instant response, which should have worried Tony just a little bit. You know those kunai you said was like your armor? Yeah, what about them? Naruto just smirked as he walked over to a chest plate blank that Tony was messing around with. This your normal stuff or just a mock-up? Actually, that's an improved version, was the reply as Tony was currently looking at one of Naruto's ruined explosive tags. That one is rated at 25% stronger than the suit I normally wear. Channeling a little nature chakra that he had collected earlier, Naruto smirked as his eyes changed to those of a toad. Then this will be perfect for what I have in mind. That got Tony's attention, causing the man to turn around and watch as Naruto lifted the chest plate off its stand and proceed to wad it up in his hands like it was wet tissue paper. Within the space of seconds, Naruto turned the chest plate into a wad of scrap, then squeezed the resulting mass between his hands until he left handprints in it. Letting the nature chakra dissipate, Naruto turned back to Tony with one of his trademark grins. Dropping the wad of ruined metal to the ground with a deafening crash, he turned and walked towards the stairs. Those kunai, the originals, I can snap one of them with just my fingers. I'll just go get those coins, he said as he opened the glass security door. Hope you brought your checkbook. The next night as Naruto stood backstage at the opening of the Stark Expo, Naruto was talking on the phone to Naruto. Yeah, Tony is going to make a flashy entrance and then we're heading back to the house. Hopefully we'll be in New York tomorrow night to pick you up, but you know Tony, so don't be surprised if we're running late. I'm already packed, Naruto assured him. Pepper called earlier saying she'd drag him kicking and screaming to the airport if she had to. Oh, and some guy came by earlier. Said his name was Colton or Colson, I can't remember. He seemed like a nice guy, but was really insisting on speaking with you as soon as possible. I've heard of him from Tony and Pepper, Naruto said as he looked up, seeing Tony approaching in his Iron Man suit. He works for a group that Tony has had dealings with in the past. Pepper says he's okay, but Tony says the guy is a bit of a wimp. Given Tony's views on most people, I'll go with Pepper's opinion. Did he leave a card or anything? Naruto could hear Naruto shuffling through something before she spoke again, just as Tony was hitting the stage. Yeah, he left a card with a number. You want it? Nah, I'll get it from you tomorrow night, he nearly shouted over the sound of the crowd and music that was currently blaring. Listen, I can barely hear myself talk, so I'll see you tomorrow night. I love you too, he just barely heard. Bye, he shouted back, disconnecting the call and turning to watch Tony as he introduced the film of his father and walked off stage. Now that was how you make an entrance, Tony said as he walked over to stand beside Naruto, pulling a silver object out of his pocket. How's the toxicity? Naruto asked, concerned for his friend. Tony shrugged as the machine pricked his finger and tested it. Not bad, but not great. Palladium levels up by 1%. Don't worry, Tony, Naruto said putting a hand on the older man's shoulder, we'll figure it out. That's a promise. It was 2 days later and Naruto was currently helping Tony train. The man couldn't match Naruto in straight-up strength, but he was fast on his feet and had good reflexes. Happy Hogan, Tony's chauffeur and sometimes bodyguard, was watching from the sidelines, having earlier attempted to go head-to-head with Naruto and gotten his bell rung pretty good for the attempt. Of course Naruto had apologized and then pointed out several holes in Happy's defense which the man stated firmly he was going to work on for their next spar. That's how Tony got involved. Seeing how effective Naruto's style of fighting was, he wanted to learn, and though he was just starting, he was making a good attempt. Naruto was impressed by Tony's drive to learn and Naruto was even sweating a little from the workout. Not that he was going to tell anyone he was holding back the majority of his skills. You sure you want to sign over your company to Pepper? He asked as he ducked under Tony's fist. Tony, who was trying to keep his mind on the spar, nodded, never taking his eyes off of Naruto. Yeah, I have too much going on right now to concentrate on the company. She's the right person for the job and I know she'll do the job for the right reasons. Speaking of, Pepper walked into the room at that moment, followed a moment later by a young woman with long blood-red hair and a natural grace about her. Naruto was on edge instantly as he recognized the way she walked as that of someone who had extensive training both in combat and stealth. He barely heard a word of the banter between Tony and Pepper as he focused on the woman. She was beautiful, though Naruto could put her to shame in Naruto's opinion, but it was the air of confidence she carried that drew his full attention. She's dangerous, muttered Naruto, just loud enough for Tony to hear. Turning to Naruto with a questioning glance, Tony called the woman over. What's your name? Natalie Rushman, Mr. Stark, she replied, sounding far too cheerful for it to be natural in Naruto's opinion. Well, Natalie, step on up here and tell me about yourself, Tony said with a smirk. Pepper was scowling at him as Natalie made her way over to the boxing ring they were standing at. Now a normal person wouldn't have noticed it, but Naruto saw the girl twitch as if she was going to bow to the mat and instantly knew she was hiding something. The grace with which she entered the ring had him on edge instantly and he focused inwards for a second to see if he detected any negative emotions. Thankfully there were none, but she was definitely hiding something from them and lying about her name. Naruto, Tony said, gaining the blonde's attention. Why don't you see if Natalie here is up to snuff in her self-defense? Seeing the hard look in Tony's eyes, Naruto understood that the man wanted him to see what she was capable of. Sure thing, Tony. Come on, Natalie, show me what you got. Naruto watched as the young woman fell into a defensive posture that was obviously incorrect, but it was the fact she had to force herself to stand incorrectly that showed the true level of her skills. The woman pretended to be only adequate at what she was doing, but Naruto could play that game as well. He waited until she was distracted by something Pepper said before he struck out at her with a loose fist. Sure enough, she took the bait. In a move that would have done Rock Lee proud, she went on the attack and tried her damnedest to put Naruto on the ground. It was purely instinctive and it failed miserably. He broke her hold on his arm instantly, used the momentum from that to bring his knee up into her ribs, rotated back with his right fist to her jaw, and knocked her flat on her ass in the time it would take someone to blink. Natalie instantly jumped back to her feet and tried to attack him again, but using only a minuscule amount of chakra. Naruto reinforced his body so that when her punch landed all she managed to do was hurt her hand. Shocked that he hadn't even moved, Naruto had her pinned to the ground with his hand clamped around her throat before she could even blink. Now, it seems someone has been lying to us, Naruto said very calmly, though his eyes were currently glaring coldly down at the girl. You're very well trained, Natalie, or whatever your name is, but you are nowhere near my level of training. So, unless you want me to break your arms and legs, followed by your pretty little face, you're going to tell me exactly who you are. As that was happening, Pepper was calling security, knowing full well that Tony trusted Naruto. So, if Naruto said she wasn't who she said she was, then it was a fact. Natalie on the other hand was just looking up at Naruto with a mix of anger and shame. It was clear to Naruto that the woman had never been in a situation like this before. But that's what underestimating your opponent and overestimating yourself tended to do to you. He was an expert in that regard, having made the same mistake many times when he was younger. It took Jiraiya a long time to beat that habit out of his head, but Naruto had learned the hard way that even an untrained civilian could kill you if they got lucky. I don't know what you're talking about, she said after a moment, trying to rein in her emotions. Please, you're hurting me and I was just doing what Mr. Stark wanted, showing you what I can do. Lie, Naruto said with a cold, dead tone. That was your freebie. The next time you lie to me I'm going to break one bone in your arm. Lie to me again after that and I'll break another bone in your arm. Eventually I'll move to your other arm and then your legs. Keep it up and I'll break each of your ribs, one at a time, before I start on the bones in your face. That's a lot of bones and a lot of pain. I can see in your eyes you are trained to resist pain. I recognize the slightly glazed look in your eyes as you are trying to separate your mind from your body, but after the first 20 or so bones, the pain is going to seep into your mind. It's going to be like fire along your nerves, pulling you back to the real world, and as I know what I'm doing, you won't be blacking out anytime soon. So, you have three options. 1. Tell me the truth. 2. Lie and suffer the consequences. 3. Bite off your own tongue and drown in your own blood. Naruto could see she was a little shocked that he mentioned that third option, though he could also see she debated it for a moment, so he added a little salt to the wound. That third one won't really help you that much, as I'll learn just as much from your corpse as I would from your own words. So, Natalie, what will it be? Fine, she spat. My name is Agent Natalia Romanova. I am a field agent for S.H.I.E.L.D. and was sent here to monitor Tony Stark now that his health is failing. What's she talking about, Tony? Demanded Pepper, though he motioned for her to be silent as he listed to Naruto interrogate the spy. So, S.H.I.E.L.D. knows about that, do they? Naruto asked, seeing her nod. And they thought they would sneak you in to do what? Steal Tony's Iron Man armor when his health got too bad. Is that why you had your agent Coulson trying to talk to me at my home, to distract me while you did your dirty work? No, that was not my assignment, refuted the young woman. I was just to monitor the situation and report back to S.H.I.E.L.D. if the situation got too bad. As for Agent Coulson, I don't know his assignment, but S.H.I.E.L.D. has had its eyes on you since your actions during the Harlem incident. Naruto nodded. She had told the truth, if maybe only part of it. Fine, you've got your eyes on me, but now I'm going to have my eyes on you. Here's the deal. You are going to tell Director Fury, yeah, I know who he is thanks to Tony, that if he ever sends one of his agents near Naruto again, I'll hunt him and the rest of S.H.I.E.L.D. down and break each and every one of them, just like I broke you. With a barely conscious flare of chakra, Naruto created 20 clones of himself, each sneering at the now frightened woman. They're not illusions, Ms. Romanova, and I'm not to be taken lightly. Think of me as a legion of highly trained and very protective warriors. I'll find you, all of you, and I will stop you from hurting the people that are precious to me. Message received, said a man's voice from the doorway. Naruto looked up and saw a tall black man dressed in all black with a long trench coat and an eye patch over his left eye. This wasn't how I wanted to meet you, Mr. Uzumaki. My name is Nick Fury, Naruto said, cutting the man off. Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and a moderately trained warrior from what I can see. I have to say, my first impression of you is that I dislike you. That being said, leave me and Tony alone. He and Pepper, not to mention anyone they are involved with along with Naruto, are all under my protection. Fury looked like he was going to say something, but the sudden appearance of one of Naruto's clones at his side with a kunai at the man's neck seemed to have him rethinking his words. My apologies, Mr. Uzumaki. I was just trying to look out for the son of a friend. I meant you and your friends no harm. So, could you please let my agent up now? Naruto nodded, releasing Natalia's neck and leaping back away from her before she could even think to strike out at him. Sure, take your agent and go, but remember what I said. It's the only warning I'm going to give you. Later that night, Naruto was kicking himself for acting so rashly. He had possibly made a serious enemy of Director Fury and Agent Romanova, not to mention S.H.I.E.L.D. as a whole, but he had been scared by the thought that warriors like them might intend to hurt Naruto. He had let his fear cloud his judgment, and that had made a bad situation worse. No, he never would have hurt Agent Romanova, but she didn't know that and was right to be wary of him. After they left, Naruto had instantly called Naruko to warn her about S.H.I.E.L.D. and she promised to be careful, but that didn't help him feel any better about her safety as he was so far away. Add that to the screaming match between Pepper and Tony as he tried to brush off the comments about his health, and both men were feeling a bit low at the moment. Jarvis' voice broke Naruto from his thoughts. Sir, there is a call on your private line. Who is it, Jarvis? It's a Mr. Fury, replied Jarvis as Naruto walked over and picked up his cell phone. He says to tell you there are no hard feelings, but he would really like to speak with you. With a heavy sigh, Naruto hit the button to connect the call, saying, before you say anything, I need to apologize for my actions earlier. I acted rashly and without thought. Well, at least you're man enough to own up to it, replied the deep voice of the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Can't let you have all the blame, though. I knew you were more than you seemed and I still sent Agent Romanova in there. So, let's just call it a wash and move on, shall we? I can live with that, agreed Naruto, hoping the man was telling the truth. Now, what can I do for you, Director Fury? We need to talk, was the immediate response. If you've got the time right now, I'd like a face-to-face. In public, just you and me. And the battalion of highly trained agents I'm sure you'll have surrounding the area in case I get out of hand, snarked Naruto, though with no real animosity. Bring who you want, I don't mind. I like you, grunted Fury. Saw right through the lie and didn't make a fuss. Can't say that for a lot of people. There's a dinner about 5 miles up the road. I'll be there in about 30 minutes, so if you could meet me there, I'm buying. Fine, but can we skip the red rose in a book? Naruto said with a laugh. I don't think I'll have any problem finding you. Smartass, grunted Fury before ending the call. Naruto pocketed his phone and grabbed the leather jacket Naruto had gotten him for Christmas off the chair it was hanging on. He made his way downstairs where he found Tony sitting on the couch nursing a drink, and asleep Pepper with her head in his lap. Giving the unusually somber-looking billionaire a questioning look, Tony just shrugged. She wore herself out yelling at me, Tony explained. I'm sure you heard it. I'm fairly certain they heard it in New York. She going to be all right? Asked Naruto as he zipped up his jacket. Once again Tony shrugged as he looked down at the sleeping woman. I think so. I told her everything and she's determined to help me in any way she can to find a cure. She actually hit me, twice, so I know she's worried. Naruto nodded with a smile. She really cares about you. Cammy knows why, but she does. Anyway, I got a call from Fury. We're meeting to try and calm this whole thing down a bit. Just thought I would warn you in case anything goes wrong while I'm gone. I'll have Jarvis up the security protocols and we'll head down to the basement, just in case, Tony replied. You going to be alright on your own, or you want me to suit up? Shaking his head, Naruto glared at his friend. No, I'll be fine. You on the other hand need to keep your ass out of that suit unless it's the end of the world. We're already working on a tight schedule, don't make it worse. There are 500 clones currently reading over anything and everything that may possibly help, so just get some rest for now. I'll be back shortly. I hate doing nothing, you know that, right? It was Naruto's turn to shrug, knowing full well that Tony would be at his workstation as soon as he got Pepper settled in. Heading down to the garage, Naruto couldn't help but grin as he saw his newest toy. After Tony had bought the gold Ryo off him at the current price of the metal, Naruto had ended up with a fairly good-sized chunk of change in his wallet. All said and done, the coins earned him an easy $4.5 million. That being said, taxes this year would be killer, but with the majority of it being invested in Stark Enterprises under Pepper's control, Naruto was sure he would see a profit. While the majority of the money went into Stark stock, 500,000 had been deposited in Naruto's bank account. Naruto was in for one hell of a surprise when she found out that her tuition for her final 2 years had already been paid in full. Even with that being done, Naruto still had money in his pocket and a desire to own something of his own rather than borrowing things from Tony. That being the case, Naruto had done an internet search on motorcycles and was now the proud owner of a brand new orange and black Ducati Monster. The motorcycle was sleek and wide as only a woman in a motorcycle can ever be. As he mounted the bike and brought it to life, Naruto wished Naruto was there with him to enjoy a ride on the bike at night. Sadly, he still had a few weeks before the end of her semester, but he promised himself that when the time came they would go riding. Looking at the time, Naruto knew he needed to get moving if he wanted to be on time. It barely took him 15 minutes to reach his destination and Fury still beat him there. Parking his motorcycle outside the dinner, a nice little silver trailer-like structure that looked completely out of place, right down to the smell of fresh paint on the sign. Closing his eyes, Naruto reached out to test the environment around him, discovering 20 men in hiding around the area and one woman. One very pissed off woman, who from the feel of it, didn't want him dead but didn't want him healthy, either. As he walked through the door, Naruto created one clone and dispersed it almost instantly as he walked through the door. One cook and one waitress, both of whom smelled like gun oil and leather, were the only other people in the place other than Fury. For his part, the smug-looking black man was sitting at the dinner's bar, dead center and in clear view of every window. Wow, you really went all out for this one, commented Naruto as he sat down next to Fury. Moved this whole place in about 2 hours ago if I'm reading the signs right, and even painted a sign and parking places just for this little meeting. I'm impressed, really. Fury was just about to say something when the doors opened again and the clones started frog marching SHIELD operatives in. Agent Romanova did not look happy, whether that was because she had been captured so quickly or because the 2 clones that captured her had disarmed her. Actually all the operatives had been disarmed, was anyone's guess. What surprised them all even more was when the clones handed the weapons back to the operatives and dispelled, save for 10 of them that instantly hanged into waitresses and cooks and started taking orders. The cook and waitress that were originally there were escorted to a table as the clones took over the kitchen and actually started preparing coffee and food. Even fully stocked the kitchen, Naruto said as one of the 3 clones there dispelled. That will make it easier. So, what will you have, Fury? Now Nick Fury was a man that was accustomed to being in control of everything around him at all times. So, for his agents, the best shield had to offer to be all captured in less time than it took Naruto to walk from the parking lot to the time it sat down was just a little disconcerting for him. The fact that Naruto had the ability to create solid clones of himself was bad enough, but that each of them probably only had a fraction of his power made the blonde sitting next to him, well, that scared the man silly. Oddly, the smell of freshly brewed coffee that was now coming from the pots behind the counter did not help the situation in the least. You're a dangerous man, Mr. Uzumaki, growled Fury. You also play a dangerous game with forces you can't hope to understand. Call me, Naruto, instructed the young shinobi with a smile. As for not understanding, get real. I've been trained to be a shinobi since I was a child. It's not that hard to understand, you work for a government that requires you to stay in the shadows. They rarely understand the sacrifices you are sometimes required to make to keep them safe, and yet they continually ask you to keep making those sacrifices. You've lied, cheated, killed, maimed, stolen, blackmailed, and anything else you've had to do in order to complete your mission. At the end of the day, the only thing that keeps you from going crazy is the knowledge that what you are doing will keep your precious people safe. The only difference between us is the number of precious people we protect. You protect a country while I protect a handful, but just like you I will do whatever it takes to keep my precious people safe. Alright, so you do understand, admitted Fury, though he didn't look too happy about it. You know, I've had my eye on you for some time now. Funny thing is when I checked into your background, ignoring the lovely little whitewashed piece of crap Stark created for you, you don't exist. That lit a fire in my belly. See, I don't like mysteries and you are one huge ass mystery. Prior to 2 years ago, you don't exist. Naruto never said a word, instead sipping on a coffee that one of his clones had sat in front of him. He was watching the room, most of the agents were acting calm, but he could tell they were ready to fight in a moment's notice. The only person, other than himself, who seemed relaxed was Agent Romanova, who was very happily eating a plate of fresh-made chocolate chip pancakes. Naruto never believed her for a second, noticing she had both her guns resting on her thighs ready to shoot him in a second. All in all, it was like any number of visits he had made to other shinobi villages, tense and ready to explode at the slightest mistake. That's when one of my people brought me a report about a strange energy fluctuation from about the same time you arrived in New York, continued Fury, ignoring the plate of pancakes and the cup of coffee in front of him. Then I found an old report from the Harlem incident, I'm sure you remember that, and footage of you getting hit with a flying car. Car was totaled, but you walked away without a scratch. Standard procedure back then was to monitor anyone that might be a future danger, but somehow your file never made it to my desk. Call it lucky, or bad staffing, it doesn't matter. Then, not that long ago, I find out you've been delivering takeout orders to my goddamn doorstep, Fury roared, a little vein now throbbing in his temple as Naruto started in on his second helping of waffles and ordered a refill of his coffee. Once again, no one fucking bothered to mention to me that someone on our watch list was actually in the building. I didn't find out until Agent Coulson was reviewing some security footage and recognized you from an ongoing file. Then I get a call from him telling me that he saw you and your girlfriend moving into Stark Tower, where you now work as a freelance security consultant. Also bodyguard and personal trainer, added Naruto, through a mouth full of waffles. Listen, Fury, if you've got a point, make it. So far you're just spewing hot air and vague theories, which honestly, I couldn't care less about. I manned up to my mistakes, but that doesn't mean I'm going to sit here and listen to you ramble just because you seem to think the sound of your own voice is intimidating. I've faced much worse things than you during my life, so excuse me if your theatrics and yelling mean little to nothing to me. If you're just trying to intimidate me, I'm leaving. You're fucking surrounded, growled Fury, having enough of Naruto's attitude. What makes you think you're getting out of here in one piece? Naruto just laughed in his face, finishing his coffee and smiling at Fury. What makes you think I was ever really here? With that, Naruto, vanished in a cloud of smoke along with all his clones and all the weapons he had returned earlier. That left Fury and 21 of his best agents sitting, unarmed, in the middle of nowhere with nothing to show for it but the smell of coffee and pancakes in the room. Agent Romanova walked over and took a seat next to Fury with a look of grudging respect on her face. "I hate to admit it, but he's got skill and style," she said quietly. "I never even heard him before the clones got me in the woods. I was disarmed and carried here so fast I couldn't even react. Only thing the clone said to me as we were coming here was that I was pretty good, though I needed a lot of practice if I wanted to be a real shinobi. Sad thing is, I think he was serious. From his point of view, we aren't that skilled and not that big a threat to him." "I know," growled Fury, finally taking a sip of his coffee and wondering why the stuff he made never tasted this good. I could see it in his eyes. He's seen the wars, just like us, only I got a feeling that whatever it was he was involved with was a whole lot nastier and much more up close and personal. Romanova nodded. She had gotten that same impression of Naruto in her 2 encounters with him. "What are your orders, sir?" "Keep him and Stark under surveillance for now," ordered Fury as he stood up to leave. "Tell Agent Coulson to remain on babysitting duty at Stark Tower, for now, but to keep his distance from Mr. Uzumaki's girlfriend. I don't think the kid will get nasty unless we push him, but I'm not letting this go until I know whether he's a threat or not." Romanova nodded, never noticing the dried leaf stuck to her boot vanishing in a puff or smoke. In fact, not one of the agents from that night would notice as various ants, twigs, and assorted other inconsequential items fell off their uniforms after they returned to base. By sunrise the next morning, Naruto's spies knew every shield base, agent, and current operation there was to know. In his youth he had been a knucklehead, he fully admitted that now, but that changed during his war. If SHIELD ever acted against him or anyone under his protection, Naruto would be ready and they would be sorry. It was as simple as that. Meanwhile, Naruto was sitting about a mile away groaning to himself. Once again he had let his inner knucklehead out and made a mess of things. Call it a learned reaction, but he did not react well to people trying to intimidate him, and what he had thought would be a brilliant prank had become another mess he would have to clean up later. This was not how he had wanted the meeting with Fury to go, but he had acted before thinking. How was this being more mature and a better person? It wasn't, and that was the problem, as he now would have to work even harder to make amends for his actions. "I need to be better," he mumbled as he started his bike and headed back to Tony's. 2 days later Naruto was escorting Tony and Pepper into a very posh restaurant in Monaco. Naruto was on his arm, exited to be invited to tag along. There were the standard introductions to the rich and famous, which Tony pointed out Naruto was going to be one of, considering his investments in Stark Industries. The fact that he was currently carrying a modified version of the Iron Man armor disguised as a briefcase had him a bit on edge, but Tony's argument that they never knew when they might need it had carried a bit of truth, so Naruto agreed. Didn't mean he liked it, but he couldn't argue with it either. "I feel so underdressed," whispered Naruto, even though she was wearing a dress that cost more than their rent for their old apartments. Naruto just leaned down and kissed her cheek, saying, "You're the most beautiful woman in this room, whether in that lovely dress or in jeans and a t-shirt. No one here can compare to you." Naruto blushed at the compliment, thinking to herself that her boyfriend was going to get very lucky later on. It was half an hour later when Naruto realized something was wrong. Tony had excused himself to go to the bathroom a little while back, and now he was on the television announcing he was going to be driving the Stark car in the race. Naruto just cringed as Pepper began to rant, deciding it was not always a good thing to be Tony's friend. Minutes after the start of the race was when sparks began to fly. A guy with electrified whips attached to his arms was attacking the race cars, with Tony fast approaching his location on the track. With a quick kiss for Naruto was out of there in a flash. Naruto went straight through the window and took to the rooftops as he sped towards the site of the attack. Rooftop travel turned out to be a bust, considering there was almost as much traffic up there due to spectators and camera crews as there were on the ground. That meant Naruto had to drop to the ground and race through the crowds of spectators. He managed to arrive just in time to see Tony's car get attacked by the guy with the whips. Hoping Tony had the good sense to tuck his legs in, or he was going to be looking for some much shorter pants from now on. Channeling even more chakra into his body, Naruto took to the air, clearing the final barrier and landing with both feet in the middle of the guy's back, driving the moron to the ground. Naruto rolled forward, noticing Tony had crawled clear of the wreckage, looking stunned but otherwise intact, and slid the Iron Man armor across the pavement to his friend. Spinning back around and pulling out 2 kunai, Naruto went on the attack while Tony suited up. Channeling even more chakra through his body, Naruto dodged a whip as the guy managed to get back to his feet. He would have been impressed if the whip hadn't almost cut a driver in half as he tried to escape. Only Naruto deflecting the whip with a thrown kunai allowed the innocent man to get free. The distraction cost him as the maniac hit him with the other whip in the chest. Thankfully Naruto had enough chakra in his system now that his skin had hardened, something that always before had required nature chakra to accomplish, but recently he had achieved just using his own. Sure, it stung like a bitch and left a fairly nasty burn, but you try getting hit with an electrified tentacle and see how you feel. Obviously the nutjob didn't expect Naruto to just shrug his attack off, because he looked stunned as Naruto got in close and punched him several times in the chest and face. Hearing Tony call his name, Naruto pulled the man forward, rolling backwards and using his legs to kick the guy up into the air. A second later Tony hit him with 2 repulsor blasts to his shoulders and disrupting the power supply to the whips. Meanwhile Naruto had used his impressive speed to get up behind the now falling man, grab hold of what looked like a metal brace on his back, and using the man's momentum he spun the guy around and slammed him face first into the pavement. From the sounds of breaking bones and shorting electrical circuits, the man was not going to be getting up anytime soon. Naruto watched as Tony kicked the guy over on his back, pulling a glowing power cell from the man's chest armor, and disabling whatever weapon systems he might still have. "Well, that was fun," commented Tony with his voice sounding distorted by the Iron Man armor. "Yeah, real fun, Tony," replied Naruto as he looked over at his friend. "Now deactivate that fucking suit before it does more damage than good." Tony just nodded as he deactivated the suit. "Yes, mother. I'll be a good boy, mother." "Oh, you don't have to worry about me, Tony," Naruto said with a foxy grin. "It's Pepper you have to worry about." "Naruto!" shrieked a voice that he had not expected to hear quite so soon. Tony just smirked as Naruto turned around to see his rather upset-looking girlfriend running towards him. "Well, look there. Seems I'm not the only one who is in for a rough night." "Tony," Naruto said right before Naruto tackled him, "I really don't like you some days." Thankful for his ability to heal quickly, Naruto was sitting on Tony's plane later that day with Naruto's head in his lap. To say she had been pissed would be an understatement. She had yelled and screamed at him for an hour straight before breaking down in tears. Thankfully he was fully healed before she demanded to see his wound, so all she saw was some soot from Naruto's ruined shirt and not the third-degree burn it had started out as. The pain of the wound had been nothing compared to the realization that he had scared her, and Naruto promised to be more careful from now on. Naruto accepted that, but made him promise he wouldn't do anything that stupid again. It was a promise he couldn't make. He told her that if it was a choice between protecting his precious people and getting hurt, possibly being killed, he was always going to choose his precious people over his own safety. That started another crying fit, but in the end Naruto accepted that the man she loved could just be stupid like that sometimes. Naruto watched and listened as Tony attempted to talk Pepper into running off with him, leaving everything behind. He could tell Tony was scared of his impending death, and he knew that the man had talked with his attacker before they left. Whatever the guy had said to him had Tony really rattled, not that he was going to tell anyone. Still, Naruto knew that Pepper would never agree to let Tony just give up, and sure enough she was pointing out that they still had options before they could just give up. She even made a suggestion that maybe until he found a solution he should remove the miniature arc reactor from his chest and use an alternate power source. Tony shot that one down fairly quick, not wanting to have a power cord attached to his chest at all times, limiting his movements and making him a prisoner in his own home. "But if it keeps you alive long enough to find a solution, isn't that worth it?" asked Pepper, tears in her eyes as she tried to make Tony see reason. "She's right, Tony," Naruto said, finally deciding to weigh in on the topic. "It buys you time that you didn't have before." Tony scowled, trying to think of another solution, and failing. "The amount of power we're talking about, I'd have to still be plugged into the arc reactor." "But it wouldn't be in your chest," pointed out Naruto. Wear the damned thing in a backpack, with proper shielding, at least until you can find better way. Now that got Tony's attention. It was a shielding issue that was causing his problem, so why couldn't he create a shielded enclosure for the arc reactor? Naruto could see the gears spinning as Tony started designing the new shielded enclosure. Sure, the guy was a genius, but sometimes he overlooked the obvious answers to his problems, instead throwing more technology at a problem. Pepper saw that look in Tony's eyes as he mentally designed the new system, mumbling about backups and shielding materials. She finally looked over at Naruto and mouthed, "Thank you," to which he just smiled in reply. His work done, Naruto just leaned his head back on the couch and went to sleep. Naruto groaned as he looked at the devastation left by Tony's birthday party. Most of the glass in the house was shattered, several cars were destroyed, not to mention Naruto's brand new motorcycle, and there was enough structural damage to make him wonder how the place was still standing. Naruto had known the party was a fucking mistake from the word go, but Tony was feeling moody and decided he needed to blow off some steam. This may have been triggered by the most recent blood tests, but Naruto suspected it also had something to do with a conversation Tony had with his friend James Rhodes. Now Naruto didn't really get along with Rhodey, probably because the guy reminded him a little too much of Sakura when she was younger. One moment he could be a really good guy and the next he was lecturing you on how foolish he thought you were. The fact that the guy felt Tony should just hand the Iron Man armor over to the military to use as a weapon rather than a shield really pissed Naruto off, and he suspected Tony was much the same. So it came as little surprise that when Tony started getting a little out of hand and put on the Iron Man armor to impress his guests, Rhodey felt it was his duty to break the part up. Naruto rather agreed with that bit, but not the method in which the man went about it. Tony had been working on a modified version of the Iron Man armor that would have its own power source rather than using the one in his chest. Evidently Rhodey knew about it and figured it would be alright if he borrowed the suit to stop Tony from getting out of hand. Now that right there set Naruto off. He knew how Tony felt about other people using his armor, and seeing Rhodey and Tony fighting, damn near destroying the place, was enough to put Rhodey firmly in the kick his ass category for Naruto. He had just managed to get the last of the civilians clear when Tony and Rhodey managed to blow up the living room by crossing repulsor blasts. Tony was out for the moment, but Rhodey was sober and came around quicker. The guy was just about to leave with the armor when Naruto stepped up behind him and tapped him on the shoulder. "I'm going to have to ask you to remove that armor, Mr. Rhodes," he said in a deadly serious tone. "If you don't, I will remove it for you. This is your only warning." The sound of the distorted snort of disbelief was the only warning Naruto got before Rhodey swung on him. Being unfamiliar with the armor, Rhodey was unprepared when Naruto ducked the punch and rammed his fist into the chest plate of the armor, effectively knocking Rhodey off his feet and across the room. Rhodey managed to recover fairly fast, but you could tell from the way he looked at his now dented armor that the man was shitting himself. The fact that a second later Naruto was on top of him, crushing the power conduits in the arm pieces to prevent him from firing the repulsor blasts, must have also surprised him because he activated the leg repulsors to try and get away. If Naruto was anything, it was stubborn. That being said, even as they crashed through a wall, he never let go of the rogue armor. With one hand free, he charged up a Rasengan and rammed it into the power supply for the suit, crushing it and deactivating the suit, which brought them to a crashing stop just as they broke through the final wall and ended up in Tony's front yard. What followed was a very rough removal of the damaged Iron Man armor that left Rhodey laying in a heap nursing several broken bones and a lovely new black eye. "So, you think you hold the moral high ground here?" asked Naruto as he glared down at the injured man. "From what I saw, neither of you were blameless. You saw the people around you as you fought with Tony, and yet you decided force was required rather than diplomacy. You escalated a situation that need never have gotten that far." Pulling a small black remote from his pocket, Naruto held it up for Rhodey to see. "Tony built this for me. It's a lockout control for his suit. One press of a button and I can shut his suit down instantly." "Then why didn't you when he was acting the fool in there?" asked Rhodey, sounding angry even though he was nursing a broken arm and leg. "Why did you let him strut around like that?" "Because it's his right to mess around if he wants to," Naruto shot back. "You make him out to be a role model, but he's just a man who's scared for his life right now." So what if he wanted to mess around? I was watching him the entire time and I never would have let him do anything to hurt anyone. Hell, I didn't activate his weapon systems until you started firing on him first. I would have stopped you both sooner, but someone had to get the bystanders out of the way. That doesn't mean I was going to let you go with his armor though. I know your type, you think you have the right to take what other people worked hard for and use it any way you see fit. Well, not this time, Mr. Rhodes. Naruto pulled his phone out and dialed 911, waiting for the operator to come on the line. This is Naruto Uzumaki and I would like to report an attempted theft of personal property, destruction of personal property, and willful negligence of human life. Not sure if that one actually has a law associated, but it should. He waited for a moment, listening to what the operator had to say before replying, yes, the two people are in custody as we speak. Their names are James Rhodes and Tony Stark. Yes, I'll swear that one out when the police get here. Thank you. He hung up the phone, glaring down at Rhodey who was looking surprised that Naruto had ratted out Tony as well, to which Naruto said, he was in the wrong. At the very least he needs to understand that his actions have consequences. I'll have to secure the armor until he's released, but then I think I'm more than capable of stopping anyone that tries to take it, wouldn't you say? Rhodey and Tony both left in handcuffs that night, but Tony admitted before he left that he had messed up. Sure enough, 2 hours later a regiment of National Guard members, 2 U.S. Marshals, and a lawyer showed up with a warrant to take the Iron Man armor and all related files. Too bad for them there wasn't a trace of any of it by the time they arrived. With the help of Jarvis and Tony's semi-sentient robotic assistants, Naruto had managed to seal all the armor, assembly equipment, computer backups, and various piles of junk parts into the seal on the back of his old headband. Jarvis then deleted all the local copies of the material in question before backing himself up to another portable computer core which was currently hidden in a seal on the back of Naruto's calf. Needless to say, the lawyer was not happy when he left empty-handed. Stark will be home in about an hour, said a voice from the doorway. Naruto turned around to find Fury and Romanova standing there with another agent, an unassuming-looking guy with a smile on his face. According to the files Naruto read the guy's name was Coulson. Yeah, I figured he wouldn't be there long, but he has to learn that his actions have consequences, just like everyone else. Just like you, Mr. Uzumaki? Asked Fury as he wandered around looking at the damage. You drew a lot of attention with your little performance in Monaco. People in all the wrong places are asking questions about you and about the young lady you were with. And you're going to offer to help me protect her? Asked Naruto, his eyes going cold. I guess I should just play nice and let you guide me to a better solution than anything I might think of? You don't think I haven't already thought of what the consequences of my actions might be? No, I'm sure you know what could happen, Fury said as he toyed with the remains of what had once been a priceless sculpture. I'm just here to offer my assistance if you should require it. Ah, I see, said Naruto with a smirk. You want to be my friend now that you know some of what I can do. Better a friend than an enemy, right? Do you want me to tell you all my little secrets, just so you can better protect me? Call you when I hear a bump in the night so you can tell me it's going to be okay? Are you fucking serious? I'm the most serious motherfucker you're ever going to meet, Naruto, growled Fury, once again trying to intimidate Naruto with his very presence. Naruto just scoffed and turned his back on the man. That why you still have Naruto under surveillance? How's that working out for you, Coulson? Not well, admitted the man. It seems every time I get near her, something suddenly gets in my way. I'm assuming you're responsible for that somehow. I have to admit, I rather enjoyed the pack of Fox kits that kept me from reaching my car the last time. Yeah, that one was fun, Naruto said with a grin. You've been fairly decent about the whole thing, so it wasn't like I was going to glue you to the roof or something like that. Naruto got a chuckle out of it as well and sends her apologies since it was her idea. Coulson nodded with a smile that never reached his eyes. I appreciate your understanding, Mr. Uzumaki. I'm just following orders, as I'm sure you're aware. Turning back to them, Naruto smiled and nodded. Yeah, I'm aware. I'm aware of a lot of things. The Avengers Initiative. The Captain America Retrieval Project, how's he doing by the way? The Tesseract Weapons Program. Yeah, I'm just full of useless information. You ever seen a black man turn red with fury, no pun intended? Well, Naruto did as he watched the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. realize that some of the most secret programs they had were now known by a man that might possibly be their greatest enemy. This was also not a fact that was lost on Romanova or Coulson, as they both looked like they had just swallowed a whole lemon. Naruto rather liked that look on all of them as he just smiled at them. "I'm not your enemy, Fury," he finally said. "Not unless you make me one. I appreciate what you do for this country, I really do, but you aren't going to be able to walk in here and force me to bend to your will. You threaten Naruto, I'll destroy your entire organization. You hurt her, I'll make you watch as I break every agent you've got, then I'll do the same to you. You kill her, there won't be a place on this planet that I won't find you and your families. I'm not normally a violent man, I'm really not, but if war taught me anything it's that you never fight for a cause, you fight for the ones you want to protect. So, I'll fight for her and those I care about. It won't be a war you can win. You think you can threaten me and mine?" demanded Fury. Fury just sighed. This meeting was a complete fucking failure. Why is it that I can't seem to talk to you without wanting to pull my hair out? Not an easy feat considering I don't have any. Fury waved off the two agents, telling them to go and tell their fellow agents and return to base before he pulled out the earpiece he was wearing and tossed it to Coulson. "I'll call you when I'm ready to leave, till then, get out of here." The two agents turned to leave, but Naruto called out just before they closed the door. "Coulson." "Yes, Mr. Uzumaki? Tell Barton he needs to find a way to carry more spare arrows," Naruto said with a kind smile. "The guy has some skills, but he really needs to be better prepared for larger forces." "I'll pass the message along," Coulson said as he nodded and closed the door. "How the fuck did you learn everything you know?" asked Fury once the door was closed. Naruto just shrugged, walking over to what was left of the kitchen and pouring 2 glasses of water. "That's my secret, that I may share with you someday if you earn my trust. We're a long way from that right now. I'm a firm believer in keeping my promises, so I will make you one right now. I promise, you earn my trust and I'll tell you my secrets while keeping yours." Fury thought about it for a moment, thinking about everything he had learned about the man in front of him, before nodding his head. "Sounds like an acceptable deal. I don't like that you know the things you do, and I would be within my legal rights to have you arrested for treason, but something tells me you wouldn't go quietly, so that leaves me in a sticky situation. I either trust that you won't act against S.H.I.E.L.D. and the United States, or I try to take you down and hope I can do it before you take us down. I'm still not positive you could manage that, but from what I saw of the reports from Monaco, it would be messy." "Yeah, it would be that," agreed Naruto. "Listen, I'm not kidding, I don't want to be your enemy, Fury. I'm just not comfortable with the fact you can't seem to get it through that thick skull of yours that I'm not going to just roll over and take crap from you or your people. I let the spying go because I could tell there was no real threat to it. Hell, I even tried to make peace with you when you called for that meeting, but I'm not going to let you muck around in my life as if you actually have the right to. I've had too many people do that to me in the past, and it's not going to end any better for you than it did for them. I'm my own person and I'll follow the laws of this land because I believe they are good laws, but when you start abusing them to get what you want, then we're going to have issues." "I can see that already," groused Fury as he sipped his water. "You're a spirit of the law type guy, not a letter of the law lackey. I can respect that and I try to do the same whenever I can, but I've got responsibilities to protect this country and I can't just let people like you and Tony go unsupervised. There has to be an accountability, you have to answer to someone at some point." Naruto nodded. It was a fair expectation as he had always had to follow a chain of command in his former world, so why not here? "That's something I can understand and have to agree with you. Like I said, I never had a problem with you watching me, it's just the heavy-handed techniques I have issues with. Can you blame me for that? I mean, honestly, I've not done anything to you that you haven't done to me. Do you like it?" With a wry laugh, Fury shook his head. "You're too fucking much like me, you know that? I look in your eyes and see myself. I think I hate that almost as much as having my own tactics thrown back in my face, but no, I can't really fault you for it. Mutual destruction, that's what we're looking at here. 2 weapons of war pointed at each other ready to go off at any moment, destroying both and leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. Not exactly the legacy I want to leave behind." "Me either," agreed Naruto with a sad smile. "I've done my time in the war. I had thought this place would be different, but it's not. My war was fought face to face, you saw your enemy's eyes when they died. Not here. Here you push a button half a world away and kill thousands if not millions and you never have to see the eyes of the survivors. I think I liked our way better." Fury nodded, filing away the knowledge that Naruto talked about coming from a different place where technology was obviously not as advanced as it was here. You may be right. We've gotten too used to killing our enemies and never having to look the results. It's made us indifferent to war, but now we have the threat of people like you and Tony to deal with as well. It's hard to deal with a threat you can't see until it's too late. A valid argument, Naruto said as he walked over to refill their glasses. That's why I like the idea of your Avengers initiative. A group of warriors tasked to deal with rogue elements that were too powerful for the military to handle. They would be protectors of the innocent and role models for younger generations. Now that is something I can get behind. Exactly, exclaimed Fury with a smile. Show the world that there is a place for superhumans and mutants that doesn't involve hate or suspicion, while protecting the people that can't protect themselves. The military can't handle that type of thing. The deal with Banner in Harlem was proof of that. Now we've got armor platforms like Tony's running around in the world, something he swore would not be an issue for years to come, and you can see we need something like the Avengers initiative. Naruto nodded, handing Fury his glass. I know, but right now the government sees the situation as something that can be handled with bigger guns and more bombs. Eventually they are going to get caught with their pants down and we're all going to be in deep shit. Hey, is this a party and I wasn't invited? Shouted Tony as he walked in the house. If it is, who invited the Cyclops? Naruto was ready for it when Tony strode across the room and slugged him in the face. It wasn't like it hurt that much. That's for having me arrested. Don't play if you aren't prepared to pay, Naruto advised. After last night, I think we'll pass on the parties for a while. Fury and I were just hashing out our differences and trying to find a common ground to work from. True, confirmed Fury with a smile. I also came to read you the riot act, but I think Naruto here is capable of doing that. I would like to talk with you, privately, if that's alright? Sure, I've got nothing better to do right now, Tony answered with an obviously forced smile and light-hearted tone. Yes you do, growled Naruto, unsealing the shielded backpack for the arc reactor and tossing it to Tony. You can put that thing on and stop acting the fool. What the fuck were you thinking putting the arc reactor back in your chest? I only allowed it because I thought it would be for a little while. Then you go and trash your own house and force me to have you arrested, meaning you've had that damned thing in for too long. How am I supposed to help you stay alive if you won't help me? Tony, looking rather like a scolded child, did as he was instructed. Yes, mother. Tony and Fury stepped outside to discuss things for a little while. At one point Fury handed him a syringe with something that helped to take the edge of Tony's palladium poisoning. He admitted it wasn't a cure, but it would buy Tony enough time to find a better solution. Eventually Fury called for Coulson to come get him, also to drop off a crate of stuff that Tony's father had left with S.H.I.E.L.D. After Fury left, Naruto and Tony worked on getting the house back up and running, though Tony told him to keep the Iron Man armor sealed up until he was sure it would be safe. Naruto agreed to that and left Tony to look over his father's things while he went to clean up and call Naruko, who was staying at Pepper's place. Seeing that Tony was rather absorbed in his father's journals and an old movie reel, Naruto jumped on Tony's motorcycle and headed over to see his girlfriend. When he arrived back at Tony's place several hours later, he was amazed at the difference in the basement workshop. Something had lit a fire under Tony's ass and the place now looked like a scene from a bad sci-fi movie. When he asked Jarvis what was going on, the computer answered that Tony had discovered something his father had left behind that pointed to a cure for the palladium poisoning and that Tony was just about to test it. Yeah, well that went well as a moment later there was a crazy-ass light show going on. Damn thing was cutting through anything in its way before Tony managed to hit a target on the other side of the room. The result of all this, other than ensuring the damned house would have to be torn down and rebuilt from the ground up, was a new element that Tony could use to power his miniature arc reactor. Jarvis, start the diagnostics. I'm guessing this is a win for the good guys? Naruto asked as he walked over to look at the new power supply. Yep, agreed Tony with a grin from ear to ear. Turns out that dear old dad still had a few things to teach me. He discovered this little gem years ago, but didn't have the means to make it, so he hid it away for me to find and perfect. With this I'll have a massive increase in performance, with the added bonus that it won't slowly kill me. Oddly enough, Naruto could actually feel an energy signature similar to natural chakra spilling out of the modified arc reactor. That thing's got some serious power behind it, Tony. Don't take it lightly and don't use it until you are sure it's not going to kill you. Hey, have some faith in me, Naruto, whined Tony with his most innocent expression. You act like I'm not a responsible adult. You're responsible, alright, agreed Naruto. You're responsible for all the damage upstairs, for the fact that Pepper is pissed at you, and also for the fact that my brand new motorcycle is now a pancake. You're going to replace it, soon. Yeah, moaned Tony. I'll have Happy pick you up a replacement tomorrow morning, happy now? Very. Naruto left Tony to run his tests as he went to clean up. He was taking Naruto to the Stark Expo as a date/bodyguard duty for Pepper. Naruto was really looking forward to it even if they would have to sit through a presentation by one of Tony's business rivals, Justin Hammer. Hammer was a bit of an asshole, at least in Naruto's opinion, but he felt he needed to be there, so why not take Naruto along? Yeah, that idea went right out the door when Hammer revealed that his big advancement was a fully autonomous battle armor that looked a lot like a knockoff of the Iron Man armor. He was just about to comment on that fact when his phone went off, the caller ID showing it was Tony calling. Tapping his earpiece, something Tony had given him just that afternoon, Naruto answered the call. What's up, Tony? You've got to get everyone out of there, warned Tony, though it was hard to tell with the sound of wind nearly drowning him out. I got a call from Ivan Valenko. The nut from Monaco? Asked Naruto as he stated, not liking the sound of this already. Thought he was supposed to be dead? Evidently the reports of his death were greatly exaggerated, replied Tony. He says he's going to attack what I hold dear and that makes me think the expo is his target. He didn't come right out and say it, but I think he's working with Hammer. Hearing that, Naruto glared up at the stage where said man was strutting about as if he was the second coming of, well, Tony. The diagnostics on the new power source finished? Naruto could hear Jarvis in the background stating they weren't, but Tony replied. Close enough and no negative results. Sighing, Naruto thought about it for a moment before saying, guess you best suit up and get your ass over here then. Well, that's where we run into a problem, Tony drawled. In case you forgot, you've got all my working suits sealed up with you. Fuck, groaned Naruto. How fast can you get here? Naruto listened to Tony giving orders to Jarvis before the man answered. Another 20 minutes before Jarvis finishes the new modified suit. Till then, stall. Oh, I'm going to do more than stall, growled Naruto, as he watched the drones on stage start to move and Justin Hammer looking rather freaked out by it. I think this time I'm going to have to go all out, Tony. Get here fast, cuz I'm not going to leave a lot of these guys for you to play with. Tapping the earpiece to end the call, Naruto turned to a rather worried-looking Naruto. Things are about to get messy around here. I need you to get Pepper someplace safe, like right now. What about you? She asked, worry evident in her eyes. What are you going to be doing? Taking off the suit jacket he was wearing and handing it to Naruto, Naruto smiled back at her. I'm going to get wild. Grabbing his girlfriend and planting a kiss on her lips that left her legs feeling like jelly, Naruto released her and jumped towards the stage just as the first of the drones opened fire on the crowd. Thankfully he had his weapon pouches strapped to his sides. Naruto's hands were a blur as he started throwing kunai faster than I could follow. He was channeling all his chakra at the moment, creating clones to fight and two that were to get clear and start gathering natural chakra in case it was needed. Still, it didn't look pretty as several of the drones took to the air and several more rose up from under the stage. The clones were fast and agile, something Naruto would not have expected from machines that looked like walking toasters. Out of the corner of his eye he saw Naruto and Pepper giving chase to Justin Hammer. The guy seemed to be heading backstage. Naruto hoped the two would be okay, but that took a backseat to the threat the drones posed to the civilians that were trying to get away. Summoning even more clones, Naruto was using elemental wind to reinforce his kunai, allowing them to cut through the drones even easier. Still, it was tough going as the damned things just kept coming. Why Hammer had brought so many escaped him, but it was a moot point as Naruto had to take them all out. He was just working on a group that were launching rockets when his phone went off again. Taking just an instant to tap the earpiece, Naruto barked, not a real good time to call, Tony. It's not Tony, replied the voice of fury. What's your situation? Grunting as he leapt over a hail of gunfire from several of the drones, Naruto hit them with the last of his kunai before answering. Not real fucking good. Hammer's drones are packing a punch. I didn't bring enough kunai. and my girlfriend is somewhere nearby doing Kami knows what. As he was talking, he picked up a jagged piece of the drone's armor and started using it as a makeshift blade, coated in elemental wind chakra, to cut through more of the drones. Tony is delayed and these things just keep coming. I need someone to find out who is controlling these damned things and stop them, or a lot of people are going to die. Naruto could hear Fury barking orders in the background before someone shouted something back. The control signal is coming from Queens. I've got Agent Romanova and Barton on their way there now. Can you hold these things off until Tony gets there, or do I need to send in the troops? Glancing around at the number of clones he had fighting the drones, Naruto had to admit it was going to be tight. I can handle this, but a lot of these things took to the air. Nothing I can do about them, and from the sounds of it, they are blowing the hell out of the place. Sir, cut in the voice of Jarvis. Mr. Stark is on his way now. Estimated time to arrival, 5 minutes. Thanks, Jarvis, Naruto said with a smile. You hear that, Fury? I got it, confirmed the man. I'll have my people start cordoning off the area and a few jets on standby just in case. Good luck, Naruto. Thanks, Nick, Naruto said with a smile as the line went dead. Time to take this up a notch. Ripping an armor pod off one of the drones, Naruto opened it and pulled out the miniature rocket-propelled explosives. Not much bigger around than standard senbon needles, Naruto started throwing them at the drones. It was a testament to his current level of strength that the damned things were moving almost as fast as they would have under their own power. 20 drones were nothing but scrap by the time he ran out and moved on to the next ammunition pod. Several of his clones had seen what he was doing and did the same. A few of the clones were making their way towards the roof to see about the drones in the air. Things were looking up until a second wave of drones rose up out of the stage. Kami, what the hell was this guy thinking? Groused Naruto as he kept up the attack. Distracted by the arrival of the new drones, Naruto felt a sharp pain in his side. Looking down, he could see that one of the drones had gotten luck and managed to hit him. The wound was bad, though not as bad as it would have been if Naruto's skin wasn't currently about the same density as steel. Still, it was bleeding bad and it reduced his maneuverability. It was clear that if he got hit again it was going to be bad, so he decided it was time to step his game up a bit. Sending the command for one of the clones that was channeling nature chakra to dispel, Naruto felt a surprising amount of energy enter his system. Feeling himself shift into Sage mode, Naruto smirked as he got up close and personal with the drones. Incoming call from Mr. Stark, droned the voice of Jarvis. Naruto, Tony shouted. How's it going on your end? Naruto groaned as he rammed a Rasengan into the head of one of the drones. Been better. Dance card is rather full at the moment, but I'm managing to keep up. How about you? Just got here, Tony said with a grunt. Picked up a few dance partners of my own. Once again Jarvis cut in. I have an incoming call from a Miss Romanova, shall I connect? Patch her in, answered Naruto as he took out another drone. Uzumaki, I took out the control source, but it looks like whomever was controlling the drones set them to work independently before the bugged out, Romanova said, sounding slightly out of breath. It's Valenko, he's alive and using the drones to take his revenge on me, supplied Tony. Hold on, got to ditch my dates. That makes sense, replied Romanova. SHIELD had reports from Monaco that the body found in his cell did not match the dental records of Valenko. Naruto scoffed as he destroyed the last pair of drones in sight. Yeah, that would have been news we could have used before all of this. There was a loud explosion from outside, which Naruto rushed towards. You still with us, Tony? Yep, just ending the night with a bang, was Stark's cheerful reply. I've heard that's how you like to end your nights, Romanova snarked. I'm heading your way now to help with crowd control. You two got the situation covered. Maybe, replied Tony. Got about 20 blips on the radar and a larger one just showed up. Might need a hand here, Naruto. I'm in the biosphere. On my way, confirmed Naruto as he took off running. Romanova, find Naruto and Pepper, commanded Naruto. Keep them safe for me, please? Sounding a little stunned that the man who had several times threatened SHIELD if they ever came near his girlfriend would now be asking her to protect her, Romanova said. I will, Naruto. Don't worry about it, just do what you need to. With that the line went dead, even Tony was gone. Rushing through the rubble, Naruto looked up and saw several drones dropping through the glass of the biosphere. He also saw a much larger drone arrive and join them. Leaping up onto the top of a kiosk, Naruto pushed the last of the nature chakra in his system to his legs, catapulting himself through the air and onto the side of the enormous glass enclosure. Glancing inside, Naruto Tony was having a tough time of it. The armor he was wearing looked only partially complete if the fact it was unpainted was any indication. It also bore signs of several hits and some severe damage to the right arm. Said damage being caused by the larger of the drones who was wielding Valenko's electrified tentacles. Dispelling the last of his clones, Naruto absorbed their remaining chakra, including the nature chakra collected by the remaining clone that had been meditating. Feeling the rush of power, Naruto summoned 2 clones to help him form a Rasen Shuriken. "Tony," he bellowed, hoping his friend could hear him. "Get clear." With the sound of the Rasen Shuriken's bell-like screech filling the air, Naruto watched as Tony blasted his way clear of the large drone. With as much power as he could muster, Naruto threw the spinning ball of death and destruction at the drone. Hoping the damned thing would penetrate the drone's armor, Naruto watched as the Rasen Shuriken hit its target and expanded to destroy the last of the smaller drones. It was the wail of pain from the large drone that really got his attention as the jutsu shredded the figure, revealing that Valenko had been inside it. He wanted to feel bad for the man, but Naruto reminded himself that Valenko had been responsible for numerous deaths tonight and brought this on himself. He leapt down to Tony's side once the Rasen Shuriken dissipated, just in time to see the remains of the drones start flashing red. Well, flashing red lights and high-pitched beeping can't be a good sign. "Pepper!" shouted Tony, blasting into the air. "Oh shit," hissed Naruto. "Naruto!" Tony had him beat by a mile as Naruto sped from the midst of the drones. There was no way he could keep up with the Iron Man armor under full power, and he prayed to Kami that Tony would make it in time. He was halfway to the auditorium when the first explosion went off. In seconds the place was turned into an enormous ball of flames and destruction. Naruto prayed over and over again that Naruko was safe. He didn't know what he would do if she was hurt, or worse. It was only when he saw Tony's armor flying into the sky that he turned and headed towards them. "Please, let him have gotten them out of there," he begged as he reached the edge of the expo grounds. "I have a call coming in for you, sir," Jarvis finally said in his ear as he was halfway to the building Tony had landed on. "Naruto," shouted Tony. "I didn't find Naruko. Pepper won't tell me where she went. They're just this big-ass fox she was riding." "Oh thank Kami," exclaimed Naruto as he reached the bottom of the building and rushed up the side of it. "I'm here." Reaching the roof, Naruto ran right past Tony and Pepper and dropped to his knees, skidding several feet, to the side of the large blonde fox. "I was so scared." Tony, his helmet laying on the ground and sparking, watched in shock as the fox began to shrink and turned into the naked form of Naruko. Pepper proceeded to forcefully turn him away, to give the young woman some privacy as she and Naruto held each other tight, their lips locked together. Oddly enough, Tony had similar thought, and a second later he and Pepper were also kissing. Naruto couldn't care less about them. All that mattered to him was that Naruko was safe. When he finally pulled away, just enough to look Naruko in the eyes, she smiled at him saying, "I don't suppose you would mind me borrowing your shirt? I ruined my new dress and it's a bit chilly out here." I noticed. It was good to be home, at least that's what Naruto considered Stark Tower these days. It had been several months since the night of the Expo incident, and so far things had been peaceful. Cleanup had been a chore, requiring nearly 2,000 clones in addition to the same amount of civilian workers to repair the damage to the Expo grounds. Eventually things returned to normal and the Expo reopened to finish its year-long run, but none of Naruto's friends really wanted to go anywhere near the place. Could you blame them? Thanks to the wonders of modern technology, mostly smartphones with video cameras along with digital video cameras, Naruto's exploits were all over the news. Fury had pulled a few strings and managed to keep the clearer pictures of his face out of the public eye, but even that didn't seem to be enough. Naruto, or as the general public knew him, Legion, was currently being hailed as an amazing example of what one man can do with the strength of his own convictions even when outgunned. At least that's what the friendlier papers said. Several of the less complimentary papers thought he was a show-boating glory hog that was a freak at best and a mutant at worst. The fact that more than a few referred to him as Iron Man's sidekick had both him and Tony rolling on the ground laughing. Other things had changed as well. For one thing, Naruto had graduated from college, which allowed her to travel more with Naruto when Tony needed. Although dancing was her passion, she would be the first person to admit that she was never going to be the best at it. With that in mind, she was now training with Naruto daily to learn how to defend herself if need be. The fact that she had figured out how to stop her transformation into a fox halfway helped boost her strength and agility, but Naruto still worried about her and her evident decision to fight at his side if need be. He was the last person to tell her that knowing how to defend yourself was a bad thing, and he did his best to make sure she was ready for anything. Still, he secretly feared her getting hurt. "I just don't want you to get hurt," he told her one night in bed after a rather long training session. Naruto kissed his cheek before saying, "I'm never going to be a superhero, not like you, but I will fight for you just like you fight for me. So, help me to help you, that's all I'm asking." "That I can do." Another new face to their training sessions was surprisingly enough Natalia Romanova. Fury had come to the tower by himself and asked if Naruto would be interested in training some of his senior field operatives. At first he had been a bit leery of training anyone from S.H.I.E.L.D., but Naruto recognized an honest appeal for help and decided it couldn't hurt. Naruto ranked her skills as that of an advanced genin or new chunin, but she was determined to improve. That determination may have been due to the fact Naruto could still beat her easily even after he told her to come at him with the intent to kill. Boy, was she ever pissed that first time when it took him less than 10 seconds to pin her to the ground in a compromising position as Naruto giggled from the sidelines. Needless to say, Natalia worked her ass off to prevent that from happening again. As for Fury, he was coming around a lot as well. Slowly but surely he and Naruto were developing a mutual friendship based on trust. It wasn't easy at first and they both caught a lot of heat for it, but over time they were getting to a point where they could trust each other. Fury had even offered Naruto a position as an independent contractor for S.H.I.E.L.D., effectively a Black Ops spy, that Naruto had eventually accepted. So far he had only had 2 missions, both of which were extraction jobs to pull agents out of dangerous situations. That was fine with Naruto as he didn't want to get involved in any wet work, but admitted to Fury that he could if the need arose and there was no other choice. Fury respected Naruto's feelings on the topic and promised he would never ask that of the young shinobi unless he had no other choice. Oh, then there was James Rhodes. Now there was a sticky situation if ever there was one. Rhodey had come by after the trouble at the expo to apologize to Tony for his actions, but he and Naruto still didn't like each other. This was not helped when Tony told him that Naruto's remote could have shut down Rhodey's armor without the need for violence. That little revelation went over rather poorly, considering Rhodey was still wearing a cast on his arm and leg at the time. Naruto just shrugged when Rhodey asked him why he hadn't shut the armor down with the remote, saying, "You pissed me off." Tony was back in control of his company again and working on setting up a new and improved arc reactor in the newly completed Stark Tower. He was also working on several new versions of the Iron Man armor, along with a project so secret he refused to tell anyone about it, including Pepper. Naruto had his suspicions in light of the fact Tony had asked to test Naruto's chakra several times, but until the man was ready he wasn't going to pry. Still, whatever it was had Tony grinning like a little boy whenever he left his workshop, and that was never a good sign. Thankfully, his new relationship with Pepper had seemed to tame his wilder inclinations, so Naruto could deal with him for now. That only left one issue for Naruto to deal with. It wasn't anything dangerous, not really. He was just trying to find the perfect ring to give Naruto. Yes, Naruto Uzumaki was going to ask his longtime girlfriend to marry him. He'd been thinking about it since the night of the Expo incident, but had been worried about it due to his increased lifespan. He wanted to have a family, that was a given, but thoughts of outliving her really worried him. It was only thanks to a very strange dream that he decided to take the plunge, so to speak. Naruto was on a jet headed to New Mexico when he drifted off to sleep. Like many of his dreams, he found himself standing in the sewer that represented his mind. He noticed that the pipes that represented his chakra had once again grown larger, with the red and blue pipes having begun to merge. The white and green pipes were now twice their previous size, though the green ones were still smaller than the others. Naruto figured it meant he was getting stronger and that in time all the pipes would merge, though how long that would take was a mystery to him. Upon reaching Kurama's cage, the doors still wide open, he noticed that the fox was starting to look a little healthier than it had for the past few years. He still didn't know what the fox had done, but he assumed whatever it was that it had drained Kurama of every last drop of chakra. That wasn't a good thing as Naruto didn't want to see his friend die, especially if it would kill Naruto in the process. It was a selfish thought, but it was true and he wouldn't deny it if asked. So seeing the fox suddenly open its eyes and look at him actually cheered Naruto up, at least until Kurama started speaking. "This is it for me, Kit," the fox said, his voice sounding weak and tired. "I used up almost everything I had to save you. What was left I used to modify your chakra coils, that way you won't die when I do." "You won't die, fuzzy butt," Naruto said with a smile. "You're too mean and nasty to die." Kurama had laughed, a wheezing and weak laugh that turned into a coughing fit, but eventually he looked back up at Naruto. "Shut up and listen, Kit. Don't you forget me, Naruto. I may not have always liked you, but you have become a good and strong man. You keep that up and do me proud. Show these people that the former host of the Kyuubi is no one's fool. My power now flows through your veins. You're going to live a long, long time, but you won't be alone. You'll never be alone, I saw to that as well. Marry that girl. She's good for you and she'll give you lots of beautiful kids to raise." "No, Kurama," moaned Naruto as the fox closed its eyes once more. "Don't you leave me, too. We've come too far for you to give up now." "Idiot," growled Kurama. "I never give up, it's just I don't always win." Kurama went silent for a moment and Naruto thought he was gone until Kurama spoke one last time. "Scroll by the gate. Sign it. Try summoning. Take care, my friend." Naruto had woken up shortly after that with tears in his eyes. He instantly began meditating, trying to disprove the dream, but when he arrived in his mindscape it was completely different. Now it looked like a version of Konoha without the people. He searched what seemed like hours to find Kurama's cage, but there was no trace of it. He was just making his way back towards the main gates when he saw a massive scroll leaned up against it. Rushing over he opened the scroll and found it was a summoning contract for foxes. A last gift from his oldest friend it seemed, meant to replace the Toad summoning contract that had not worked since his arrival in his new world. That night as he was laying on his bed at the hotel, Naruto called Naruko and got some rather surprising news. "I had the strangest dream this afternoon while I was taking a nap," she said. "I was standing in a sewer and a fox, the cutest little nine-tailed fox, walked up to me and started talking. He told me his name was Kurama and that he had a gift for me. I asked him what it was and he suddenly jumped up and bit my hand. It didn't hurt or anything and he immediately apologized. Then he said something really strange." "What did he say?" asked Naruto, thinking this might have something to do with what Kurama had said about taking care of something to deal with Naruko. She giggled for a moment, then answered, "He told me I was in charge of taking care of his kid from now on." He looked so sad as he said it, but his tails were wagging and he was just so cute. I couldn't resist and picked him up to hug him. He told me thank you, that no one had ever hugged him before and it was a really nice way to go. Then he just faded away and I woke up." Naruto held back the tears, wishing he had thought to hug the old furball at least once. "Did anything odd happen when you woke up?" "Now that you mention it, something strange did happen," admitted Naruko. "I suddenly had the urge to transform and when I did I noticed I now have 3 tails, not just the 2. "What's it mean, Naruto?" "It means a very old friend of mine gave you his blessing," Naruto answered with a smile. "He and I weren't always friends, but eventually we saw eye to eye and became partners. Later we even managed to become friends. I just found out today that he passed away and I think he wanted to meet you, just once. It's a good thing, Naruko, he's free now and that's what he always wanted." Tony had run the tests, as had Fury when Naruto asked him to, and it was now confirmed that Naruko had a regeneration similar to Naruto's. He still might outlive her, but from what they could tell, it wouldn't be by much. When Naruto had sat Naruko down to explain the situation, she had been about as freaked out as he had been, but they were dealing with it now and hoped that eventually things would work themselves out for the best. That being the case, Naruto was now determined to ask her to marry him, and was just looking for the right time and ring to do it. Oh, there had been a price to Fury agreeing to keep the results of the tests he ordered for Naruto and Naruko. It wasn't anything too demanding, just a meet and greet that had introduced a new friend into Naruto's life. Steve Rogers was a lot like Naruto had once been, confused and naive with a sense of honor that knew no limits. The man was a remnant of an era that was long gone. A child of war and bloodshed with powers beyond that of the average man. Fury wanted Naruto to show Steve around, as both were new to this world and Naruto saw no problems with it. Twice a week he and Steve got together for lunch or sparring. Naruto rather enjoyed the man's company. Oddly, Steve reminded him of the third Hokage, his pseudo-grandfather. "Sir, I have a call coming in from Director Fury," Jarvis said, pulling Naruto from his thoughts. Naruto got up off the ground where he had been doing push-ups as he thought, grabbing a towel and his earpiece. Naruto tapped it and connected the call. "What's up, Nick?" "Not sure yet," Fury said by way of a greeting. "Got some static out in New Mexico that's got everyone scrambling to clear up. Don't think it's anything too serious at the moment, but you never know when this type of thing can blow up in your face." Naruto knew what project he was talking about as there was only one out in New Mexico that would have Fury sounding so tense. "Man, that sucks. You need me to call anyone for you? Let them know you'll be running late?" "Not yet," replied Fury. "Just wanted you to know that I might not make it to the cookout tonight. Tell everyone I'm sorry, but save me a seat just in case." "I got you," said Naruto with a grim expression on his face. "Sorry you won't be there. We're lighting the fire in about an hour. Hope you'll be able to make it. If you're late we'll have something hot ready to go." "Don't worry, I'll take care of everything." "Thanks," Fury said, actually sounding like he meant it. "Take care, my friend." "You too, Nick," responded Naruto right before the line went dead. The conversation was coded the whole way through, meaning someone was sitting nearby that Fury didn't want figuring out who he was talking to. Now that could have meant one of his assistants, as most of them didn't really approve of Naruto's attitude towards S.H.I.E.L.D., or it could have meant Fury was afraid of the line being intercepted by Tony. That made more sense, considering Fury loved to annoy Tony almost as much as he loved to scare the shit out of new S.H.I.E.L.D. recruits. The message had been simple. Shit had gone wrong at the New Mexico site where the Tesseract was being tested. Whatever was going on, Fury was evacuating his people and scrambling S.H.I.E.L.D. before a possible explosion. Nick was going to be there doing everything he could to stop it, but had no idea what the outcome would be. Naruto was to wait and see what happened, but in case Nick didn't come back he was to gather certain people to deal with any fallout that might result. Naruto had agreed, but told Nick that if he hadn't heard from him in an hour, he was telling Tony and they were heading his way. If worse came to worse, Naruto would find out what happened and take the needed steps. "Tony, what?" Naruto ran out of his room and headed for the armory with Tony following a moment later. "Nick just called. Something's gone sideways out in New Mexico. He thinks he's got it handled right now, but if we haven't heard from him in an hour, we're the cleanup crew." "Oh shit," groaned Tony as he started typing into a keypad and unlocked the Iron Man Mark VI armor cabinet. "This could be really bad, couldn't it?" Naruto just nodded as he unlocked his own weapons cabinet. Naruto had never gone for flashy armor, but that hadn't stopped Tony from having a field day with the rest of his equipment. Inside the cabinet were racks of kunai and shuriken made from the strongest alloys on the planet. Then there were the rolls of ninja wire, actually high-density monofilament wire that Tony had created just for him. Hanging from both doors of the cabinet were multiple swords of different lengths. These were handmade by some of the greatest masters of the art. Oh, Tony had tried to replicate the masterpieces those men could create, and each time they had failed. This was one situation where technology took a backseat to pure skill and experience. "I'm going to call Steve," Naruto informed Tony as he pulled off his t-shirt. "Do you have to?" whined Tony. "He's such a Boy Scout." Naruto chuckled as he pulled the specially designed black body armor over his head. It looked like regular cloth, but it was actually woven from more of the high-density monofilament, making it damned near impossible to puncture while still letting it be flexible. Naruto had matching pants and a hooded jacket made out of the stuff. The hood had a mask that could be pulled up to hide his face if needed. All in all, the whole set of clothes cost more than most houses, but it was worth it if it kept Naruto from worrying. The fact that the t-shirt was orange just made it that much more appealing to Naruto. Fastening his weapons pouches to his thighs and taking two of the wakizashi swords from the door. One would slip into sheath that ran down his spine while the other was worn on his left hip. Originally he had looked for ninjutsu like the ones he had used on his own world, but here it seemed they were nothing but speculation and hearsay, with no historical evidence to prove they were ever used outside of movies and fiction. Turning around, Naruto watched as the last pieces of the Mark 6 were fastened into place. Nice thing is, with you being all bright and flashy, no one ever looks at me. You get the saddles ready, I'll call Steve. The saddle was not really a saddle but a cargo pod for Naruto to use when they needed to get someplace faster than a regular jet. The device was a modified dragline that was attached to a small hypersonic airframe that Naruto could ride in. The airframe was controlled by Jarvis and provided a fairly smooth ride, unless Tony decided he needed to indulge in his penchant for stunt flying. The last time he did that, well, Naruto was not happy and after throwing up he had proceeded to chase Tony around the city for an hour or so. The fact that Tony was only wearing his bodysuit at the time might have added to the fun as people laughed at the running billionaire. "Jarvis, can you connect me to Steve's number?" asked Naruto as he headed for Naruto's room. "Right away, sir," replied the computer, followed a moment later by, "It's ringing." "Hello, Steve Rogers speaking, may I ask who's calling?" "Steve, it's your favorite sparring partner," Naruto said as he glanced into Naruto's room, finding it empty. "Just got a call from Nick. Looks like he's got some problems and isn't sure he's going to make it tonight for the cookout. We're lighting the fires in about 45 minutes, so grab your serving platter cuz we may need you to help dishing out something hot." "Understood," replied the overly serious Steve. "I'll be there as soon as I can." With that he hung up. Steve hated when Naruto called his shield a serving platter, but considering how low-tech Steve's apartment was, it was easier to talk in code than to try and teach him how to use a digital phone that could be encrypted. Putting that issue to the back of his mind, Naruto was looking through their section of the tower when he noticed the note on the kitchen counter. Giving it a quick glance, Naruto cringed. Naruto and Pepper had gone shopping again. Thanks to Tony and Pepper showing him how to invest his money, Naruto was far from poor these days, but those two women on a shopping trip could really hurt a guy's wallet. 20 minutes later and Steve was in the process of changing into his combat gear. Tony wasn't happy about pulling two saddles behind him, but if push came to shove it was nice to have the backup if needed. The three of them had worked together twice before, both times on rescue and humanitarian missions. This looked like it could possibly turn into the same, yet no one wanted to take any chances. If Nick was worried enough to warn them, then it was best to be ready for a fight even if it never came to that. At 10 minutes to deadline, Jarvis announced an incoming call from Fury, which had Tony ordering, put him through, and locked down the line, maximum encryption. "Nick, you all okay?" asked Naruto once the connection was confirmed. "We're on a secured line, so what's going on?" Nick could be heard to sigh from the other end of the line. "I'll tell you what's going on, we just got fucked. Not just a Saturday night quickie, either. I'm talking a full-blown prison gangbang. Fucking Thor's little brother just showed up and compromised several of my agents and the scientist we had working on the Tesseract. Walked out of here as pretty as you please, then caused an explosion that may have killed God only knows how many people." Colonel," stammered Steve, shocked by Fury's analogy. "Do you need us to do anything to help?" Another sigh was heard as Fury tried to rein in his obvious anger. "No, you and Stark can stand down for the moment. However, I've got a job for you, Naruto, if you've got the testicular fortitude." "What you need, Nick?" asked Naruto as the other two men in the room looked a little offended that they were not needed for this. "I need you to retrieve someone for me," Fury answered. "I need you to get Banner for me. I'm sending a jet for you right now. Make sure he knows I'm sending for him, not his other half. Tell him if he helps me with this, I'll make sure he gets a clean slate when it's done." "Who's Banner?" asked Steve looking a little confused. Tony chuckled at the question, though Naruto could see he was nervous. "One of the most brilliant men in the world, next to me. Has some rather shocking anger management issues though." "Yeah," agreed Naruto. "Reminds me of me, though not as bad." That statement left everyone looking at him funny. He assumed Fury was doing the same considering the line went quiet. "I'll get him, Nick. Where you want him? I need you to pick up Agent Romanova on the way back, so she'll give you the address," Nick answered. "See you then and good luck." Several hours later Naruto was walking through the slums of Calcutta, India. He had sent out 2,000 clones to get the lay of the land and learn the language. Within an hour he knew the language and every alley and dark corner in the place. Evidently Banner was working as a doctor in the area, trying to help those that couldn't afford to pay a regular physician. He entered the building Banner was currently working in, seeing that the man was treating a man and his child for Kami only knew what. A family member tried to stop him at the top of the steps, but Naruto explained he meant no harm and merely wanted to speak with the doctor. "Who are you?" asked Banner as they walked out of the building. "The name is Naruto Uzumaki, Dr. Banner," Naruto said with a smile. "I was asked to come see you regarding a matter of some urgency." Banner, clearly agitated if the wringing of his hands was any indication, looked at him for a moment before speaking. "How did you find me?" "I'm a private contractor for a group called SHIELD, explained Naruto, still as calm as could be. "I don't know how they found you, I didn't bother to ask, but it is my experience that they never really lose anyone." "Great, just great," groaned Banner, running a hand through his hair. "Are you here to kill me, because that's not going to work out real well for you?" "Nah, I don't do wet work," replied Naruto with a smile. "I'm more of an extraction and retrieval guy. SHIELD needs me to get someone out of someplace quietly, they call me. I've never lost anyone yet." Banner thought about that for a moment, then nodded before saying, "And are you here to retrieve me, or the other guy?" "You're the same person, either way, so that's a dumb question," Naruto said as he pulled a smartphone from his jacket and handed it to Banner. "I was sent here because that was stolen and I'm told you are the expert in these things." "What is it?" Banner asked as he pulled a pair of glasses out of his jacket and began to examine the data on the screen. "It's called the Tesseract," explained Naruto. "Basically it's a source of unlimited energy with a rather uncertain background. Maybe alien and maybe an artifact of the gods. No one knows for certain. A few hours ago it was stolen. Nick, he's the director of SHIELD, thinks you are the most qualified person to track it down for him, so here I am asking for your help." Banner seemed to think about that for a few minutes as they continued to walk. Eventually Naruto found a little sidewalk stall with the smell of coffee, or really strong tea, coming from it. Motioning over to the stand, Naruto took a seat and ordered 2 cups of the thick brown liquid for himself and Banner. He could tell that Banner was freaking out and he couldn't really blame the guy, but he wasn't going to force the guy to do anything he didn't want to. After Banner finished looking over the data he sighed, putting the phone down and taking off his glasses. A second later he slammed his fists into the table and glared at Naruto. "And what if I don't want to come with you?" he roared. "Better yet, what if the other guy doesn't want to come with you? You going to try and stop me? That's going to get really messy." Naruto just shook his head as he sipped what he thought was coffee, waiting for Banner to get his little dramatic show over with. "Wow, you do have anger issues, don't you? To answer your question, I'll let you go. I was just asked to pass on the request and a promise of a clean slate if you helped. There was no mention of forcing you to come with me. In fact, since you kind of remind me of me, I'll help you get out of here if you want. It's up to you. You're not afraid of me, are you?" asked Banner, his face a mix of confusion and worry. "Do you have any idea who I am?" "Oh yeah," answered Naruto with a grin. "I actually met you once before, sort of. I was in Harlem the night you defeated Emil Blonsky. I've got to say, impressive use of a police car. However, you know what really impressed me that night? How can you be so calm knowing what I can become?" asked Banner looking around. "You don't even act as if you're worried I might lose control and hurt these people. Don't you care about them at all?" "Let me ask you a question, Doctor," Naruto replied, his tone going hard at the insinuation that he didn't care about the safety of the people around him. "How long since your little accident?" 9 years, Banner replied with a shudder. 9 years, murmured Naruto. "Tell you what, when you reach 22 years, you come bitch to me. Till then, you are just talking out of your ass. I know what it's like to have a monster inside you that can wipe out everything you love. I've seen the damage that losing control of that monster can do, and honestly, at one point I would have traded you demons in a heartbeat." Turning to face Banner, Naruto drew on some of Kurama's chakra to change his eyes to red, which completely freaked the man out. "The difference between us is that you still fight against your inner darkness, while I embraced mine a long time ago and learned to work with it. If push came to shove, I'm pretty sure I could put your Hulk down faster than you could blink. Thing is, I don't think I'd have to. My gut tells me that you might have a sea of rage boiling away inside you, but you're still human enough to care if you hurt people." "You make it sound like you're not human," shot back Banner. "I'm not sure I am anymore," Naruto replied as he let his eyes turn back to blue. "So, will you help us, or am I helping you catch a fast train out of here?" 2 hours later they were picking up Natalia and heading back towards the States. Natalia was a bit nervous about Banner being in the plane with them, but Naruto just waved her off as he and the doctor chatted about things. Banner had a lot of questions for him, mainly to do with what Naruto had said. Naruto answered what he could, not wanting to give away any secrets about his origins, but being as honest as he could. It was really surprising to him how much he and Banner had in common. Both of them were victims of circumstances beyond their control that had left them at the mercy of their stronger emotions. Banner's problem was that he had never really found a way to form a partnership with his inner darkness, whereas Naruto had. They talked about all the methods Banner had tried over their years. Naruto dismissed most of them from his own training with Jiraiya. Still, the man was trying, and that was something. "I can feel your anger even now," Naruto said eventually. "That's how you keep it under control for now. You keep yourself in a constant state of rage so that you have some measure of control. Right?" Banner nodded. "Yeah, I took away that trigger by making it my own. Now it takes pain or a conscious effort to change." "Not a bad idea," Naruto complimented. "Pain you can't really control, only deal with, while triggering it yourself leaves you the ability to at least aim your darkness where you think it will do the least amount of damage." "Exactly," confirmed Banner. "If I can hold it off long enough, I can usually get far enough away from the source of the pain or rage to reduce the collateral damage to a minimum. It doesn't always work, but it's better than nothing." "Has anyone ever tried to talk to you while you're transformed?" asked Naturo. Banner shook his head saying, "My former girlfriend would try to calm me down, but most people are too busy running to try talking. At least that's what I gather after the fact. I don't usually remember anything but flashes from when he's in control." "There you go again, considering your transformed state a different person," Naruto said with a groan. "I'm telling you, it's just the darker side of you, not a separate person. You tell me that again if you ever meet him face to face," was Banner's retort before the man turned away and tried to catch some sleep before they arrived. "I'll do that, Doc, believe it." Natalia watched all of this from her seat at the front of the little jet. After hearing about Clint Barton being compromised, she was already on edge, but then to see Banner sitting on the jet with Naruto had her twitching. Naruto had assured her that he had it under control, but this was Banner they were talking about, and not even the blonde could take on the beast that Banner became. Could they? She wondered that as she played with her private cell phone. Things were going to be interesting, that was a given. Now if only she had a few more answers and her gun, she would feel much better. Steve's point of view. This point of view inspired by Iris, performed by the Goo Goo Dolls. Steve Rogers was sitting at his desk looking at the file that contained the personal records of the men and women he had served with during the war. Every one of them was long dead, whether dying on the battlefield or of old age, they were all gone. All save one, and she was the only one he really cared about. Margaret, Peggy, Carter, the woman he had thought might be the dance partner he had longed for in his youth. Peggy was still alive, living in England now. There was even a phone number to reach her at. The problem was, did he have the right to call her after so long? The report said she had been one of the original members of S.H.I.E.L.D. and had pushed for them to find Steve, even after everyone else gave up hope. There was no mention of her ever marrying, just a list of accomplishments and honors she had earned over the years. Peggy had lived a good life, if the report was to be believed, finally retiring when she reached the mandatory retirement age of 65, but even then she had worked as a consultant from time to time. Her commitment to protecting the world was amazing, but that really was just a side note for Steve. Did he have the right to call her, all these long years later? What would the sound of his voice over a phone line do to her? Would she be happy that he was alive or angry that he sacrificed himself and their chance together? It was hard to tell what the right thing to do was. He heart wanted to at least talk to her one last time, but his mind was adamant that doing so would cause more pain than good. He had always been a man that had remained strong in the face of hardship, but right now he wanted nothing more than for someone to understand what it meant to be so far away, years away, from everything he had ever known and loved. Walking over to his phone, a rather simple cordless one that Naruto had gotten for him, Steve looked between the phone and Peggy's number. Out of the corner of his eye he caught sight of mask sticking out of his gym bag. Sometimes he really hated that mask and everything putting it on had seemed to take from him. Bucky, a normal life. Peggy. He had sacrificed so much for his country, and though he had never questioned it before his final confrontation with Schmidt, since he had woken up he questioned it all the time. Hadn't he sacrificed enough, given up enough? He had fought his war and the price demanded of him was his life. Now, given a second chance, he was being asked to do it again. Service to your fellow man was supposed to be its own reward, but when you were alone and afraid of the world around you in the dark of the night, it seemed a pitiful thing compared to the cost. To go on, to fight for the rights of those that couldn't fight for themselves was a noble ideal, but who would fight for him? Who would stand beside him at the end of the day? When would he just be able to dance, or had the band already gone home and this was all he had to look forward to? An empty rundown apartment and the constant wait for the phone to ring, for the call to come asking him for one more sacrifice until there was nothing left. Was that really what he wanted? No, he whispered, a sad smile on his lips as he turned away from the sight of his mask and picked up the phone. He was just about to dial Peggy's number when the thing rang, shocking him into dropping the damned thing on the ground. He scrambled to pick the thing up, accidentally kicking it under the couch in the process. Without thinking about it, Steve dropped the sheet of paper with Peggy's number on it as he lifted up the couch and used his foot to move the phone out from under it. Setting back down the couch, he grabbed the phone and hit the button to connect the call. Hello, Steve Rogers speaking, may I ask who's calling? Steve, it's your favorite sparring partner, Naruto's voice said over the open line. Just got a call from Nick. Looks like he's got some problems and isn't sure he's going to make it tonight for the cookout. We're lighting the fires in about 45 minutes, so grab your serving platter cuz we may need you to help serve the masses. Understood, replied Steve, falling into his mission frame of mind. I'll be there as soon as I can. Disconnecting the call and grabbing his gym bag, jacket, and keys to his motorcycle. With a quick glance around the apartment to make sure he hadn't left anything on, Steve was out the door and on his way to his latest adventure. Forgotten in his haste was the report with Peggy's information on it. The call to duty had come and once again Steve Rogers, better known to the world as Captain America, had answered. In years to come he would ask himself what would have been different if he had made that phone call, but it was too late by then to change anything. Leaving Steve to wonder what was the true cost and reward of his service to a country that barely resembled the one he had been born in. For Margaret, Peggy, Carter had passed away the morning after Steve answered Naruto's call. Unbeknownst to Steve Rogers, Peggy was fully aware of his return to life and was happy for him. She had never given up hope they would find him someday, though in her wildest dreams she had never thought Steve would be alive. Still, it was good that he had a chance to find happiness. She prayed that he would eventually be able to put down his shield and live a peaceful life, the wars long forgotten. There had been the temptation to call him, to see him one last time before her end, but that wouldn't be fair to either of them. No, Steve deserved more than to sit by the deathbed of an old woman. He deserved so much more than that. When her niece found her the next morning, Peggy had a smile on her face and an old faded picture in her hand of a dashing young man in a strange uniform. Natalia's point of view. This point of view inspired by Need You Now, performed by Lady Antebellum. Naruto and Banner had drifted off and Natalia was left fully awake and unsure of the future. Fury had told her about Clint being compromised and she didn't know what to think about it. Clint was the whole reason she was even working for S.H.I.E.L.D., so if he could be compromised it made her question her own worth. Looking down at her watch she saw it was at 10 after 1 in the morning, local time, and wondered what Clint was doing right then. Was he already helping Loki to plot against them? She really wanted to talk to him, find out the truth of things. Was he thinking of her just like she was thinking of him as she sat there with everyone asleep around her except the pilot? She glanced over to where Naruto was currently snoring, though she really doubted he was as deeply asleep as he looked. Banner was out cold and drooling on his jacket. It was so human of him and really didn't match the image she had of him. Truth be told, Banner scared her silly, but Fury said he was needed and Naruto said he would handle it if the scientist turned green and gigantic. She would deny it if anyone ever asked, but Naruto being there gave her a sense that things were going to work out for the best. He was annoying, with his power and skill that made her feel like a novice, but Naruto was a warrior and she could respect that. Glancing back down at her watch she saw that it was now 1:15. Unable to hold back any longer, Natalia pulled out her private cell phone and hit the speed dial for a number she wasn't sure would pick up. Putting the phone she waited 3 rings before the phone picked up. The line was silent, not even the sound of breathing, but she knew he was there. He always answered when she called, so why would this time be any different? Natalia debated the merits of calling a compromised agent, then ignored them and spoke. Clint, she whispered. You there? No reply, but she knew he was there. Please, tell me it's not true. Tell me you aren't working with Loki. Still no reply, but she wasn't going to give up till he spoke. You know, I thought Fury was joking when he called. I was in the middle of an interrogation when he called. Was that a breath, a grunt maybe? She didn't know, but she wasn't giving up now. He's going to ask me to find you. You know that, right? I don't want to fight you, Clint. Please, don't make me fight you. I need you watching my back, not on the other side. Come on, Clint. I need you. There was silence for a moment as she tried to rein in the emotions that were fighting to get out. She could hear him breathing on the other end of the line now, forced and heavy like he was fighting something. She prayed he was fighting whatever it was that had a hold of him. Clint Barton was one of the best men she knew, and while she would fight him if she had to, she wouldn't like it. She wanted to hear his voice. The silence was killing her. Even hearing him tell her he was going to kill her would be better than the silence. At least it was something compared to the nothingness of a silent line. Finally she got her reply, though it was not the one she wanted. Sorry. That was all he said before the line went dead. Natalia just stared at the phone for a moment before tucking it away in her jumpsuit. Leaning her head back, she closed her eyes and tried to get her mind back in the game. Clint was lost to her for right now, but she wasn't going to give up on him. She owed him too much to give up now. Opening her eyes up again, she was rather surprised to find Naruto looking at her with a sad smile on his smile. We'll get him back, he whispered just loud enough for her to hear. It's a promise, Natalia. She nodded, not wanting to admit to her weakness, but somehow she doubted Naruto would ever tell anyone. Thank you, Naruto.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.